Chapter 329. Before this, Shi Wenyu had been challenging the 7 Stars Pagoda for 5 consecutive years. In the first 3 years, he stopped at the 5th level and couldn't even enter the 6th level. Until 2 years ago, he finally broke through the 5th level, but he couldn't find the exit in the 6th level. After 2 years of research and pondering, he finally understood the mystery of the array on the 6th level. Because of this, he came to the 7 Stars Pagoda this time with full confidence. He was determined to reach the top of the 7 Stars Pagoda. Humph! To be able to see through such a marvelous heaven and earth great formation and successfully break it, other than Yun Yao, only I can do it. As for Ji Tianqing, that bastard, he must still be in the 5th level, fighting with the demonic beasts. Ha ha! Shi Wenyu laughed proudly. When he thought that Ji Tianqing was most likely still in the 5th level, his heart was full of pride and a sense of victory. But at this moment, he suddenly glanced out of the corner of his eye. In the middle of the black disk, there was a figure in a white robe sitting cross-legged. His face suddenly changed, revealing a look of disbelief. Someone reached the 7th level before me? How is this possible? Shi Wenyu growled and quickly ran to the middle of the array. When he came to the middle of the array, he saw that the white-robed man sitting in the middle of the array was Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing looked calm, and his body was covered with a layer of faint starlight. Obviously, he had been cultivating here for a long time. When he saw this scene, Shi Wenyu's expression became extremely unsightly, and dense embarrassment, shame, and indignation gushed out from his heart. He couldn't believe that Ji Tianqing had reached the top of the 7 Stars Pagoda before him. Just now, he was full of pride, thinking that he was the first genius after Yun Yao. In the end, the truth was like a silent slap on his face, making him blush with shame. He couldn't wait to find a hole to hide in. Fortunately, Ji Tianqing is cultivating. I am far away from him. He shouldn't have heard me. Shi Wenyu comforted himself, and the embarrassment in his heart was relieved. At the same time, Ji Tianqing ended his cultivation and opened his eyes. When he saw Shi Wenyu in front of him, he couldn't help but frown, revealing a mocking expression. Haha, I didn't think that a fellow like you would actually be able to make it to the 7th floor. Although you're a few days late. Shi Wenyu was already full of shame and anger, and when he heard Ji Tianqing's contemptuous and teasing words, his face immediately turned red. His eyes were filled with anger as he glared fiercely at Ji Tianqing and shouted coldly, Ji Tianqing, don't be so arrogant. So what if you reached the 7th floor before me? That's only because you're lucky and you have a pet to help you. When it comes to real skills, you may not be my match. Ji Tianqing cast a sidelong glance at him. His expression was still indifferent as he said with a faint smile, is that so? Then why are you in such a sorry state, like a beggar? Is this a popular way of dressing up in the Tianjin sect? You! Shi Wenyu gnashed his teeth in anger. His blood was surging in his chest and abdomen, and he almost spat out blood. If Ji Tianqing had shouted out in anger, maybe Shi Wenyu wouldn't have been so angry. However, Ji Tianqing's demeanor was very indifferent. He always had a condescending attitude, looking down at people with cold eyes. Shi Wenyu's self-esteem and pride had been trampled on by Ji Tianqing time and time again, which had accumulated a great deal of anger in his heart. However, Shi Wenyu didn't act on impulse. He forced himself to suppress his anger. Ji Tianqing has been cultivating here for a long time. He has been conserving his energy and keeping his strength at the peak state. I have just reached the 7th floor. My injuries haven't healed and my strength hasn't recovered. If I were to fight him now, I would be at a disadvantage. Shi Wenyu analyzed silently. He decided to endure for a while and teach Ji Tianqing a lesson when he recovered his strength. Thinking of this, he glared at Ji Tianqing and shouted in a deep voice, Ji Tianqing, the 7 Stars Pagoda is a dangerous place. Those who can reach the top of the 7 Stars Pagoda are all top geniuses. I won't bicker with you today for the time being. Wait until next year's Stars List tournament and I'll defeat you in front of everyone on the star platform. Let's see what qualifications you have to be arrogant then. Ji Tianqing, of course, could see through his thoughts and couldn't help but sneer contemptuously. Since you're so confident, Shi Wenyu, why wait until next year's Stars List tournament? I see that this place is spacious and suitable for a fight. Why don't you make your move now and let me see how you're going to defeat me? He mercilessly exposed Shi Wenyu, causing Shi Wenyu's face to turn ashen and full of anger. Ji Tianqing, you're courting death. Shi Wenyu roared and rushed towards Ji Tianqing as fast as a gust of wind. He punched out 2 basin-sized fistlights and fiercely smashed towards Ji Tianqing's head. Ji Tianqing immediately counterattacked. A strong fighting intent burst out from his body and he also punched Shi Wenyu with his fists. Bam! The fists of the 2 men fiercely collided with each other, causing a loud dull sound and a violent burst of energy. Ji Tianqing stood motionless and didn't even take half a step back. Shi Wenyu's body was shaken and he staggered back 5 steps and almost fell to the ground. He was injured and his strength had not recovered yet. He was not Ji Tianqing's opponent at all. He shouted with shame and anger, "Ji Tianqing, you've gone too far. Do you dare to give me a day? I'll be able to defeat you easily after I've recovered my strength." He wanted to goad Ji Tianqing into action to stall for time, but he didn't expect that Ji Tianqing didn't fall for it at all. Ji Tianqing curled his lips and sneered disdainfully. "Don't make a fool of yourself in front of me with such a low-level provocation. I came here first, so this area is mine. If you want to heal and cultivate, then get the hell out of here. Otherwise, I don't mind throwing you out of the 7 Stars Pagoda." Shi Wenyu was so angry that his lungs almost exploded. He clenched his fists and his whole body was trembling. In the past few years, which genius disciple of the younger generation didn't greet him with a smile and respect? Who dared to scold and insult him to his face? When had he ever been insulted like this? "Ji Tianqing, just you wait. I'll remember this grudge." Shi Wenyu's face was ferocious. He stared at Ji Tianqing with resentment and roared in a hoarse voice. Ji Tianqing didn't expect that Shi Wenyu could still swallow his anger at this point. He was a little surprised and thought to himself, "This Shi Wenyu is really good at enduring. He's obviously a scheming person." Since Shi Wenyu had admitted defeat, he couldn't be bothered with him anymore. He sat cross-legged on the ground and continued to cultivate with the help of the silver crystal. Shi Wenyu glared at him fiercely and turned to leave. He wanted to go to the edge of the 7 Stars Pagoda array to heal his injuries. However, he suddenly saw the silver crystal and the small jade soul coffin in front of Ji Tianqing. He raised his eyebrows and greed flashed in his eyes. That shining silver crystal is located in the center of the 7 Stars Pagoda array. It should be the soul crystal that Master mentioned. What's that jade box? Ji Tianqing seems to care a lot about it? Shi Wenyu stared at the soul crystal and the jade soul coffin and thought to himself, the 7 Stars Pagoda is only open for 1 day. 1 day in the outside world is half a month in the pagoda. At most, in 5 days, Ji Tianqing and I will be sent out of the 7 Stars Pagoda. He has been guarding the soul crystal. How can I do it? No, I have to heal my injuries as soon as possible. After I recover my strength, I'll think of a way to take the soul crystal. Chapter 330. The top of the 7 Stars Pagoda finally regained its tranquility. Shi Wenyu sat on the ground, took out a few healing elixirs and consumed them. He circulated his energy to heal his injuries and silently restored his strength. Ji Tianqing sat in the middle of the 7 Stars array, closed his eyes and circulated his energy to refine his acupoints with the help of the stars. Both of them did not want to waste any time, so they concentrated on cultivating and improving their strength. Before Ji Tianqing came to the 7 Stars Pagoda, Yun Yao told him that the 7 Stars Pagoda would only be open for a day. The flow of time in the pagoda was different from that in the ancient realm of the stars. A day in the ancient realm was half a month in the pagoda. He calculated the time and found that the 7 Stars Pagoda would send him out in 5 days at most. In these 5 days, he wanted to use the mysterious and powerful stars to improve his strength as much as possible. After all, cultivating here for 5 days was equivalent to cultivating outside for 2 months. If he missed this opportunity, he would have to wait for another year. Time passed quickly and a day passed quickly. After a day and night of cultivation, Shi Wenyu's injuries had basically healed and his strength had recovered by 90%. He ended his cultivation and quietly turned his head to look at Ji Tianqing in the middle of the array. Seeing that Ji Tianqing was still cultivating with his eyes closed, a cold light flashed in his eyes. Then, he silently stood up and walked toward Ji Tianqing. He stopped behind Ji Tianqing and observed the soul crystal and the jade soul coffin. Soon, he found the tranquility array set up by Ji Tianqing and Ji Ku, who was sleeping in the jade soul coffin. Ji Tianqing, that bastard. No wonder he was guarding the soul crystal. It turns out that he brought someone in. Does he want to use the 7 Stars array and the soul crystal to heal that girl? Shi Wenyu frowned, anger surging in his eyes. Seeing that Ji Tianqing was still cultivating and did not seem to notice his approach, a thought appeared in his mind. In order to obtain the soul crystals, I have to first destroy the tranquility array set up by Ji Tianqing. Once I try to break the formation, he'll definitely wake up and stop me. No, I have to get rid of him first. Therefore, Shi Wenyu quietly walked behind Ji Tianqing. He circulated the true essence in his body and gathered all the power he had accumulated in his right hand. Then, he fiercely slapped the back of Ji Tianqing's head. He wanted to knock out Ji Tianqing with a single palm strike and then throw him into the sea of clouds. As a result, Ji Tianqing would fall out of the 7 Stars Pagoda and no one would be able to stop him. His right palm, which was glowing with dazzling flames, was about to hit Ji Tianqing's head. At this critical moment, Ji Tianqing, who was cultivating, suddenly opened his eyes. Without turning his head, he raised his left hand and sent a backhand slap towards Shi Wenyu. His left arm turned red, and the red flame true fire gushed out of his palm, condensing into a fiery palm the size of a basin. Bang! The 2 fiery palms collided fiercely and exploded with a muffled sound, bursting into flames all over the sky. Ji Tianqing sat in the same place without moving, but Shi Wenyu was forced to take 3 big steps back before he was able to neutralize the violent impact. He suddenly widened his eyes, and his face was filled with disbelief. I've already recovered 90% of my strength, and I took advantage of his cultivation to launch a sneak attack. How could I still be pushed back by him? At the same time, Ji Tianqing stood up and turned to look at Shi Wenyu. He shouted in a cold voice, Shi Wenyu, I gave you a chance to cultivate here, but you shamelessly sneak attacked me. You're digging your own grave. Ji Tianqing shouted angrily. He instantly pulled out the black dragon sword and slashed at Shi Wenyu with all his strength. At that moment, the black dragon sword turned into a huge cold sword light, revealing the shadow of a divine dragon. Roar! A deafening dragon roar rang out, spreading throughout the entire 7 Stars Great Array. The golden divine dragon shadow, with the power to split the sky and earth, instantly drowned Shi Wenyu. Shi Wenyu had no time to dodge and could only pull out his sword to block. Bang! With a loud bang, he was sent flying by the divine dragon's sword light. He spat out blood and flew more than 10 meters away, smashing hard on the black stone ground. Cough, cough. Shi Wenyu coughed violently and blood flowed out of his nose and mouth. He looked more and more embarrassed. He struggled to get up, holding a green sword in his hand. He glared at Ji Tianqing and shouted, Ji Tianqing, you damned bastard! How dare you draw your sword at me? Do you want to fight me to the death? Ji Tianqing coldly shouted with an indifferent face. You sneak attacked me when I was cultivating. Such a despicable and vicious act. It's only right for me to kill you. Shi Wenyu refused to admit it and cursed angrily, bullshit. You were the one who broke the rules first. I just came closer to check the situation. You violated the rules set by the 8 sects and brought others into the 7 Stars Pagoda. You even placed them in the 7 Stars Array. What are your intentions? Of course, Ji Tianqing could not explain to him about Ji Ku. He shouted angrily, Shi Wenyu, cut the crap. Show me your full strength. Let me see where your arrogance lies. As soon as his voice fell, Ji Tianqing's figure flashed and pounced on Shi Wenyu. He waved his sword and sword light filled the sky. Shi Wenyu also waved his sword and fought back. He displayed his exquisite swordsmanship and dozens of huge sword lights shot out like a rain of arrows. Bang, bang, bang. The sword lights from both sides collided fiercely and burst out a series of muffled sounds, stirring up a violent hurricane. The sword lights that filled the sky collapsed and turned into countless sword light fragments, scattering in all directions. In just 20 breaths, the 2 of them had exchanged more than a dozen moves and clashed head-on several times. Ji Tianqing originally thought that he could easily defeat Shi Wenyu with his strength at LV7 Tongxian realm. However, Shi Wenyu was the chief disciple of the Tianjian sect after all. His swordsmanship cultivation was exquisite. After exchanging more than a dozen moves, neither of them gained the upper hand and the fight ended in a draw. Ji Tianqing immediately put away his black dragon sword and displayed the flying star swordsmanship. He activated the sword embryo in his body and released 2 huge golden sword lights. They attacked Shi Wenyu from both sides. Gale Thunder Strike. The 2 3-meter-long golden sword lights exploded with a dazzling golden light. Mixed with the violent hurricane, It was like a huge golden thunderbolt that struck Xueqi on the spot. With a loud bang, Xueqi was sent flying. His face was covered in blood as he fell 10 meters away. He gritted his teeth and endured his injuries. He struggled to get up and wanted to use his swordsmanship to fight back. At this moment, Ji Tianqing released another huge flaming sword light and attacked him. Crimson Dragon Flash. The 5-meter-long flaming sword light was like a flaming divine dragon that instantly engulfed Xueqi's figure. Boom! Chapter 331. Xueqi was lying on the ground, covered in blood. He was seriously injured. He struggled to get up. His whole body was trembling, and he had to lean on his sword to stand firm. In addition to anger, there was also shock and disbelief in his heart. He didn't expect that he would still be easily crushed by Ji Tianqing, even after he had recovered 90% of his strength. The two had only exchanged a few moves, but he was seriously injured by Ji Tianqing. He couldn't believe or accept this result. Xueqi felt a chill run down his spine when he saw Ji Tianqing walking toward him with a murderous aura emanating from his body. He glared at Ji Tianqing and roared in a hoarse voice, "Ji Tianqing, what do you want to do? Do you dare to kill me?" This is the 7 Stars Pagoda, a place jointly controlled by the 8 sects. The 8 sects have long stipulated that the disciples of each sect are not allowed to kill each other. If you dare to kill me, my Tianjin sect will use this as an excuse to suppress your sky-bearing sect. At that time, your sky-bearing sect will become the target of public criticism. You, Ji Tianqing, will also be a sinner who has brought disaster to your sky-bearing sect. Obviously, Xueqi was afraid, so he deliberately said these words to threaten Ji Tianqing. Before entering the 7 Stars Pagoda, he didn't put Ji Tianqing in his eyes and didn't understand Ji Tianqing's nature. He couldn't help but worry. Ji Tianqing looked murderous. If he really wanted to kill him, what should he do? Ji Tianqing still walked towards him with large strides. He stared at him indifferently and said in a contemptuous tone, "Xueqi, don't use the tiger skin as a banner. You're just greedy for life and afraid of death. Since you're so cowardly and afraid of death, where did you get the courage to sneak attack me? Where did your arrogance and pride go?" Xueqi was ashamed and angry, but he couldn't flare up. He could only swallow his anger and say, "Ji Tianqing, don't be too greedy. Even though I've offended you, you've already injured me to this extent. We're even now." As he spoke, he kept backing away, staring at Ji Tianqing warily. In fact, his heart was filled with grief, indignation, and rage. He was madly cursing Ji Tianqing to die. He had long since made up his mind that as long as he could get through this difficult situation, he would definitely think of a way to kill Ji Tianqing and cut Ji Tianqing into pieces. Ji Tianqing approached step by step with a sneer on his face. He said in a mocking tone, "Are we even now? Xueqi, you're lying to me. At this moment, you must be thinking of killing me, right? You don't have to swallow your anger, and you don't have to bear the humiliation and plot revenge in the future. Come on. Didn't you want to kill me? A great opportunity is right in front of you. Make your move." Xueqi clenched his teeth. He could neither defend himself nor put down his dignity to beg Ji Tianqing for mercy. He kept backing away and soon retreated to the edge of the 7 stars array. 10 meters behind him was a vast sea of white clouds. At this moment, Ji Tianqing bellowed in a contemptuous tone, "Xueqi, you have ulterior motives. I can't let you stay here. Today, I'll give you an unforgettable lesson. If you're lucky enough to survive, then consider yourself lucky." After that, he turned into a golden shadow and rushed toward Xueqi as fast as lightning. In the blink of an eye, he rushed in front of Xueqi. He raised his left hand and condensed a huge flaming palm with the red flame true fire. He slammed it toward Xueqi's chest. Xueqi was shocked and subconsciously put his sword in front of his chest to block Ji Tianqing's palm. Bang! In a dull loud noise, Xueqi was sent flying by the giant flaming palm on the spot. He flew backward without any resistance, drawing an arc in the air before tumbling and landing in the vast sea of clouds more than 10 meters away. Ah! Xueqi's figure was drowned in the sea of clouds, but his mournful screams still echoed in the air. It was early in the morning. In the open space under the 7 Stars Pagoda, the mountain wind whistled and the morning dew was heavy. It had been 16 hours since the 7 Stars Pagoda opened. 5 young disciples stood in the open space. They stood in groups of 2 or 3 and whispered to each other. These 5 young disciples had already entered the 7 Stars Pagoda. However, they failed to pass the 4th and 5th levels and were ejected from the 7 Stars Pagoda in advance. Even so, everyone did not feel embarrassed. They had long been accustomed to it. Everyone whispered to each other and looked up at the 7 Stars Pagoda, waiting for the results. As of now, there were still 3 disciples in the 7 Stars Pagoda. There was a bronze lamp on the 6th level of the 7 Stars Pagoda, and 2 bronze lamps on the 7th level. This undoubtedly meant that one of the 3 disciples stayed on the 6th level, and 2 of them had reached the 7th level. Chao Xian, True Martial Sect, and Windfire Sect's chief disciples stood together. They looked up at the 7th level of the 7 Stars Pagoda and whispered to each other. Yun Yao didn't come this year, but there are still 2 people who can reach the top of the 7 Stars Pagoda. It's unbelievable. It's really unbelievable. The 3 people who haven't come out yet are Senior Brother Wen Yu, Feng Min, and Ji Tianqing. I wonder who the 2 people who reached the 7th level are? In my opinion, the first person to reach the 7th level must be Senior Brother Wen Yu. As for the second person, it should be Feng Min, yes. It's already a miracle that Ji Tianqing could pass the 4th and 5th level. How could he reach the 7th level? Senior Brother Wen Yu is still the best. He was full of confidence before he came to the pagoda. Now, he really reached the 7th level. Chao Xian said with a face full of smiles, I dare to bet that in less than 2 hours, Ji Tianqing will be ejected. Just thinking about the sorry state he'll be in when he falls from the 6th floor fills me with anticipation. The other 2 young disciples nodded in agreement, and said with a smile of exultation, yes. When he is ejected from the 7 Stars Pagoda for the first time, he will definitely not use the power of the array to reduce the impact of the fall. When the time comes, he will fall from a few hundred meters high and will be seriously injured. If he's unlucky, he might fall to his death on the spot, and even lose his life. Chao Xian grinned and revealed a sinister sneer. It will be great if he dies on the spot. At this moment, a young disciple next to him suddenly exclaimed, Someone has been ejected. Hearing this sudden cry of surprise, the disciples in the open space all looked up at the sky. Amidst the white clouds, a white figure was falling down at lightning speed. Although this person was constantly waving his palms to release true core brilliance to hit the Tianyuan array that enveloped the 7 Stars Pagoda, trying to reduce the impact of the fall with the help of the array. However, the speed of his fall was too fast to reduce the impact of the fall. After 3 breaths, the white-robed figure fell from the sky and hit the ground hard. Boom! Chapter 332. Following the loud noise, the ground shook violently several times, and smoke and dust flew up into the sky. Seeing this scene, the few disciples widened their eyes and let out a low cry. Oh my God! Falling from 1,000 meters high, even if he doesn't die, he'll be crippled? So miserable. I wonder who this unlucky guy is? This guy seems to have fallen from the sea of clouds. Could it be that he fell from the 7th level? Impossible? If he entered the 7th level, he would only be sent out when the time is up. How could he be ejected in advance? Look, there are 2 bronze lamps on the 7th level. One of them is out. Suddenly hearing a disciple's exclamation, everyone looked up at the top of the 7 Stars Pagoda. He saw that one of the 2 copper lamps that were originally lit had indeed gone out. Seeing this scene, Chao Xian and the few disciples turned pale with fright. Their expressions became extremely interesting. That person's figure doesn't look like a woman. It shouldn't be Feng Min. Since it's not Feng Min, then it's very likely to be Ji Tianqing or Senior Brother Wen Yu. It must be Ji Tianqing. In a few words, the few disciples guessed the identity of the person who fell miserably. Chao Xian frowned and cursed in a low voice. Ji Tianqing, this bastard. He actually reached the 7th level? The other 2 disciples quickly followed up and asked puzzledly. Then why did he fall again? Could it be that he slipped and fell? Is there a need to guess? He must have been thrown down by Senior Brother Wen Yu. Let's go and take a look. Ha, let's go. I want to see if Ji Tianqing, that bastard, fell to his death. Chao Xian and the 2 young disciples not only did not have the slightest bit of sympathy, but also looked like they were gloating. Everyone rushed to the edge of the array and poked their heads to look inside the array. They saw that the grassland under the 7 Stars Pagoda was still covered in dust and smoke. The ground was smashed into a huge pit with a radius of 5 meters. A young man in a white robe was lying in the deep pit. This person's white robe was tattered and full of holes and bloodstains, almost turning into a gray robe. His long hair was also tangled together, making him look like a chicken coop. This person's figure was tall and robust, yet his appearance was in a sorry state. He was sloppy like a beggar, and it was simply unbearable to look at. He lay in the deep pit and twitched. Another pool of blood flowed out from his body and dyed the ground red. He struggled a few times before he struggled to get up and raised his blood-stained head. Seeing this, Qiao Xian and the other young disciples were dumbfounded. "You are actually senior brother Wenyu? How is this possible? Senior brother Wenyu, how did you fall down? How could this be? Why wasn't Ji Tianxing the one who fell? What the hell is going on? Senior apprentice brother Wenyu, you clearly ascended to the 7th level. How did you fall down?" Everyone was stunned. Their hearts were filled with shock and confusion. They had no idea what was going on. Qiao Xian's mood was the most complicated. His face was gloomy and his eyes were surging with anger. Last night, he vowed to the others that Ji Tianxing would never be able to ascend to the 7th level. He would definitely be ejected and fall miserably. But the truth was the exact opposite. Ji Tianxing did not appear, but Shi Wenyu fell down. Seeing Shi Wenyu's miserable appearance, he felt a chill down his spine and his heart was secretly alarmed and fearful. He could not imagine what Ji Tianxing had done to Shi Wenyu. At this time, Shi Wenyu staggered out of the pit. He did not care about the bloodstains on his face and the mud on his body. He looked up at the top of the 7 Stars Pagoda and roared hysterically, "Ji Tianxing, just you wait. I will remember this. One day, I will make you pay back 10 times. These 2 short sentences contained endless anger and killing intent. It seemed that it had exhausted all of Shi Wenyu's strength. He staggered to the edge of the array, stepped through the transmission light door, and returned to the open space under the pagoda. Several disciples quickly gathered around him. They were full of shock and curiosity as they asked him what had happened. But Shi Wenyu's injuries were extremely serious. His whole body had turned into a blurry bloodman and his consciousness was on the verge of fainting. He did not care about the crowd's questions. He staggered out of the open space and went down the mountain alone. After such a thing happened, he was in such a miserable state. He did not have the face to stay under the pagoda, let alone talk to the crowd. Qiao Xian and several young disciples looked at Shi Wenyu's figure in the distance. They all showed extremely complicated expressions and whispered to each other. How could this be? It seems that Shi Wenyu was defeated by Ji Tianxing? It's incredible. Ji Tianxing came to the 7 Stars Pagoda for the first time. He actually ascended to the 7th level and defeated Shi Wenyu. If I didn't see it with my own eyes, I would never believe that this was true. Isn't it too incredible? It seems that we have all underestimated Ji Tianxing. Shi Wenyu was severely injured. It shows that Ji Tianxing's strength must be very terrifying. Several disciples were discussing animatedly. Only Qiao Xian did not say a word. His face was as gloomy as ice. Time passed quietly. Unknowingly, 2 hours had passed. At this time, the copper lamp on the 6th level of the 7 Stars Pagoda suddenly went out. A graceful white figure floated down from the sky. Her body was light and graceful. She constantly waved her palms to hit the Tianyuan array with true essence brilliance. With a muffled bang 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 sound, she used the rebound force to reduce the impact of the fall. A moment later, she floated to the ground and walked out of the transmission light door. This beautiful woman with picturesque features and dignified elegance was Feng Min. Although she failed to ascend to the 7th level and was ejected from the 7 Stars Pagoda, she was not injured. However, she was not injured at all, and her posture was not disheveled. Instead, she seemed to be floating in the air. Several young disciples greeted her and looked up at the top of the 7 Stars Pagoda. Now, there was only one copper lamp left on the entire 7 Stars Pagoda that was still lit. Everyone was wondering how Ji Tianxing was so powerful that he could reach the top of the pagoda on his first attempt. What kind of gains would he obtain at the top of the 7 Stars Pagoda? At the top of the 7 Stars Pagoda, the starry sky was still bright. Ji Tianxing sat cross-legged in the center of the array. He used the power of the soul crystal to cultivate and strengthen his strength. His body was covered in a layer of faint starlight. His temperament became deep and peaceful, as if he had merged with the vast starry sky. In the stamen of the lotus platform in front of him, The soul crystal emitted a rich starlight that enveloped the entire jade soul coffin. Xueqi, who was sleeping in the coffin, was also wrapped in a layer of silver starlight. His aura was calm and peaceful, and his bloodline power was constantly strengthening. Time passed silently. 2 days, 3 days. 5 days passed quickly. When the time was almost up, Ji Tianqing felt something in his heart. He finally ended his cultivation and opened his eyes. He opened his mouth slightly and exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. A wisp of silver qi flowed out of his mouth, emitting bits of starlight. The power of the stars is indeed the most mysterious and powerful force in the world. Its effects are extraordinary. I only cultivated in the 7 stars array for 5 days, and I used the power of the stars to continuously temper 6 acupuncture points. Sigh. If I can continue cultivating here for a few more days, I can break through to level 8 Tongxian stage in one go. When he thought of this, he felt a little regretful. He lowered his head to look at Xueqi, who was sleeping in the jade soul coffin, and whispered, "Cuckoo, the time is up. I have to leave now." Chapter 333. Ji Tianqing sat next to the jade soul coffin and looked at Xueqi gently without saying a word. After about a quarter of an hour, the 7 stars great array suddenly lit up with a ray of starlight that wrapped around his entire body. Swoosh! With a flash of dazzling starlight, Ji Tianqing disappeared into thin air and was sent out of the 7 stars pagoda. This was the rule of the 7 stars pagoda. When the time limit was up, the challenger would be sent out. Xueqi slept in the jade soul coffin and was placed in the 7 stars array, so he would not be sent out by the pagoda. In the next moment, Ji Tianqing's figure left the 7 stars pagoda and appeared in the open space below the pagoda. Swoosh! He stood on the platform with an indifferent expression and calmly looked at the several young disciples not far away. It was evening now, exactly 24 hours after the 7 stars pagoda opened yesterday. The faint golden light of the setting sun shone on his body, causing his figure to be dyed with a layer of hazy gold. He actually had the aura of an otherworldly expert. The young disciples were whispering when they saw Ji Tianqing suddenly appear. They all quieted down and looked at him in unison. Everyone was the chief disciples of their respective sects, so their strength and vision were not bad. They could see at a glance that Ji Tianqing was stronger than a day ago, and his aura was more mysterious and restrained. His change was very obvious. Not only did his strength increase, but even his temperament had changed. In the past, his aura was like a treasure sword, but the sharp blade was hidden in the scabbard and did not show its edge. Now, his aura was like the vast and deep starry sky. It was mysterious and tranquil, but it was unfathomable and unfathomable. Feng Min and Wu Yu came up to him and cupped their fists in greeting. They smiled and said, "Junior Marshal Brother Ji, congratulations. I didn't expect Junior Brother Ji to reach the top of the 7 stars pagoda on his first try. It's really incredible. It's like a miracle." Ji Tianqing cupped his fists at the two of them and nodded slightly. He didn't say anything. Humble himself? He did not need to. Show off proudly? This was not in his nature. Feng Min and Wu Yu both understood his temperament, so they didn't say anything more. After saying their goodbyes, they turned and left. The other Pill Cauldron sect disciple also came to bid farewell to Ji Tianqing before leaving the 7 stars pagoda. In the blink of an eye, there were only 4 people left in the open space. They were Ji Tianqing, Qiao Xian, and the other 2. Qiao Xian and the 2 young disciples walked up to Ji Tianqing and said coldly, "Ji Tianqing, you actually knocked Xueqi down from the 7 stars pagoda. The Tianjian sect will remember this. In a few days, we'll meet again. Let's see how you're going to deal with this then." The other 2 young disciples also said with a gloomy expression, "When the disciples of the various sects challenge the 7 stars pagoda, even if there is some friction between them, they will never fight to the death. Ji Tianqing, you're so arrogant that you've angered the Tianjian sect and violated the rules set by the 8 sects." Ji Tianqing looked indifferently at Qiao Xian and the other 2. He frowned and said coldly, "So, you want to stand up for Xueqi?" The 2 young disciples' expressions changed and they quickly explained, "Although we're on good terms with Xueqi, we can't stand up for him. Of course, he has to solve his own grievances with you. We don't mean to stand up for him. We're just warning you, Ji Tianqing, to behave yourself in the future. Don't provoke public anger and become everyone's common enemy." Ji Tianqing looked at them calmly and said coldly, "Since you 2 don't dare to stand up for Xueqi, Why are you still shouting in front of me? The two young disciples' expressions suddenly stiffened. They were embarrassed and angry. You, Ji Tianxing. Very good. You're crazy. The two of them stared coldly at Ji Tianxing, then took 2 steps back and didn't say anything more. Only Chao Xian was left standing. Ji Tianxing's gaze fell on him again. He said jokingly, Chao Xian, it said that you and Xueqi are close, like brothers. Xueqi asked for it and ended up in such a miserable state. As a brother, aren't you going to seek justice for him? His tone was a little playful, but his eyes were as sharp as a sword. Chao Xian's heart tightened and he was secretly on guard. Ji Tianxing, don't be arrogant. I just said that when we meet again in a few days, I'll teach you a lesson. In a few days? Ji Tianxing frowned, not understanding what he meant. But he didn't ask and said jokingly, if you want to avenge Xueqi so much, why wait a few days? Now is a good time. You can try. Ji Tianxing's tone was very indifferent, and he looked down on Chao Xian. Chao Xian had long hated and resented him. Now that he was being ridiculed, he was so angry that his face turned white and he gritted his teeth. For a moment, he had an impulse to draw his sword and slash at Ji Tianxing to teach him a lesson. But the 2 disciples of the true martial sect and Windfire sect hurriedly reached out and pressed on his shoulder, giving him a look. The 2 of them used their spiritual sense to persuade Chao Xian. Junior brother Chao, don't be rash. Ji Tianxing is deliberately provoking you to attack. He wants to take the opportunity to teach you a lesson. Senior brother Chao, even Xueqi is no match for Ji Tianxing. It's even more impossible for us to beat him. Let's bear with it for a while. Chao Xian only calmed down after hearing the 2's advice. He glared at Ji Tianxing with hatred in his eyes. He gritted his teeth and shouted, Ji Tianxing, I'm a magnanimous person and won't bicker with a bastard like you. Before he could finish, Ji Tianxing sneered, haha, you want to bicker with me, but do you have the guts? You! Chao Xian's lungs almost exploded from anger. His entire face turned the color of pig liver, and his eyes were about to spit fire. In his life, he had never been so aggrieved as he was today. Being ridiculed and insulted to his face, he could only swallow his anger and did not even have the courage to attack. He was so angry that he panted rapidly. He twisted his shoulders to break free from the 2 young disciples' hands and rushed toward Ji Tianxing. Ji Tianxing, you've gone too far. Chao Xian's blood boiled with anger. He rushed toward Ji Tianxing without a care in the world. He raised his palms and slapped out dozens of huge palm shadows. Each palm shadow was the size of a wash basin and was formed by sharp metal elemental true essence. It contained a powerful force that could split open stones. Although his strength was not as good as Xueqi's, he was also at level 8 Tongxian realm. This raging waves palm technique had also been tempered thousands of times, and its power was extremely ferocious. Ji Tianxing looked at the dozens of golden palm shadows coming toward him. He raised his left hand calmly and slapped out a huge flame palm the size of a millstone. Bam bam bam! The terrifying power of the giant flaming palm instantly shattered more than a dozen golden palm shadows. Chao Xian had just sensed that something was wrong. His eyes were filled with shock, but it was too late for him to dodge. With a muffled bam, he was sent flying by the flame palm and landed on the ground 10 meters away. His white robe was scorched by the true flame fire, and his long hair was charred and curled. He looked like he had crawled out of a coal pit and was in a sorry state. Moreover, his internal organs were injured by the terrifying power of the flame palm. He struggled to get up, but he covered his mouth and coughed. Blood flowed out of his mouth. He felt the injuries on his body and was shocked and angry. However, he did not dare to attack Ji Tianxing again. Seeing this, the 2 disciples from the true martial arts sect and the Windfire sect looked terrible and sighed in their hearts. Ji Tianxing's strength has reached such a terrifying level. Chao Xian can't even take one hit from him. Chapter 334. Silence reigned in the field. Ji Tianxing stood calmly in the open space with his hands behind his back. His entire body emitted a confident and powerful aura. The disciples of the true martial sect and Windfire sect looked at Ji Tianxing with fear, not daring to say anything. Chao Xian coughed a few times and wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. He glared at Ji Tianxing with a ferocious expression and shouted in a venomous tone, Ji Tianxing, you win. The Thousand Autumns sect will remember this. Don't be smug. One day, I'll make you kneel at my feet and beg for mercy. Hearing this, the two young disciples' expressions changed and they turned their heads away, unable to bear to look at Qiao Xian. Qiao Xian, are you stupid? You've just been injured by Ji Tianqing and now you're saying such harsh words. Other than being humiliated by him again, what's the point? The two of them thought at the same time. They both thought that Qiao Xian had lost his mind in anger and had lost his sense of reason and propriety. Sure enough, Ji Tianqing looked at Qiao Xian with cold eyes, and a mocking sneer appeared at the corner of his mouth. Haha, you and Xueqi are indeed brothers in distress. Both of you only know how to spout harsh words. Since you're so powerful, I'd like to see what right you have to make me beg for mercy. As soon as he finished speaking, he used the shadowless step. His body turned into a golden afterimage and rushed toward Qiao Xian as fast as lightning. He didn't draw his sword. Instead, he raised his left palm and slapped it toward Qiao Xian with a giant flaming palm. With his strength, he didn't need to use the black dragon sword to deal with a martial artist in the 8th stage of Mystic Enlightening Realm. Qiao Xian saw the giant flaming palm coming toward him and was instantly shocked. He retreated in fear. The two disciples from the True Martial Sect and the Windfire Sect hurriedly pincer attacked Ji Tianqing, blocking his attacks. Ji Tianqing, don't be presumptuous. You're too aggressive. Back off. In their opinion, no matter how strong Ji Tianqing was, he couldn't beat the two of them together. After all, Ji Tianqing was not Yun Yao. No matter how strong he was, there was a limit to his strength. But the two of them did not expect that Ji Tianqing did not retreat or avoid, but instead sped up and rushed towards Qiao Xian. Shua! His speed was extremely fast, and his body also turned into a golden stream of light, instantly passing between the two of them. The two of them were stunned on the spot. Their palms almost hit each other. At the same time, Ji Tianqing rushed in front of Qiao Xian and hit him with his left palm. Qiao Xian's figure was engulfed by the red flame true fire. He immediately let out a painful scream and was blasted to the ground. After the giant flaming palm dissipated, the two young disciples saw his appearance clearly. His entire body was charred black and smoking as he lay on the ground. His black robe had already been burned to ashes, and blood was flowing out of his mouth and nose. His injuries were even more severe. A 3-meter-wide crater appeared on the ground paved with black slabs, and more than a dozen cracks appeared around it. Qiao Xian suffered such a heavy blow and lost the ability to fight on the spot. He no longer had the courage to fight Ji Tianqing. He clenched his teeth and suppressed the anger and humiliation in his heart. He silently got up and walked down the mountain without looking back. When he reached the edge of the open space, he turned back and glared at Ji Tianqing, his eyes full of hatred and resentment. He buried this hatred in the bottom of his heart and swore silently in his heart that today's hatred would be repaid 100-fold. He would use Ji Tianqing's life and blood to wash away the shame. Seeing Qiao Xian leave silently, the two young disciples also left quickly, lest Ji Tianqing come to settle the score with them. In the blink of an eye, the three of them left quickly, their figures disappearing into the forest in the distance. Ji Tianqing looked at the backs of the three people leaving and did not chase after them to kill them. The reason he did so was to teach Qiao Xian a lesson and make him obediently tuck his tail between his legs. He had long known that Qiao Xian hated him very much and had secretly slandered and cursed him many times. Previously, he was busy with the 7 Stars Pagoda and only wanted to settle Jika down as soon as possible. He was too lazy to waste time on Qiao Xian. Now that the matter was over, Qiao Xian did not know what was good for him and came to threaten him. Of course, he would not let Qiao Xian off. Ji Tianqing's concept was that if people did not offend him, he would not offend them. If people offended him, he would definitely offend them. After a while, the sun set behind the mountain. The world was dark and night was about to fall. Ji Tianqing also summoned Qian Yu and rode it out of the 7 Stars Pagoda, returning to the sky-bearing sect. 12 hours passed and it was already the next morning. Qian Yu carried Ji Tianqing across 2,000 miles and returned to the sky-bearing sect. After Ji Tianqing returned to the Tianqing courtyard, he entered the secret chamber to cultivate. Previously, in the 7 Stars Pagoda, not only did he obtain a large number of spirit fruits, but he also cultivated in the 7 Stars array for 5 days. In just 5 days, he had absorbed a large amount of star power from the soul crystals and stored it in his body. He had not completely refined and absorbed it yet. He wanted to continue cultivating for 2 more days to completely refine the star power and further improve his strength. Qian Yu and the little black dragon were also sleeping in the 100 treasures brocade pouch, silently digesting the power of the monster cores and the star power they had absorbed. It was peaceful for 2 days. On the morning of the 3rd day, a beautiful woman in white came to the Tianqing courtyard. It was Yun Yao. Maid Xiao Shuang knew that she had a close relationship with Ji Tianqing, so she led her into the courtyard and waited in the living room. Maid Xiao Shuang went to the secret chamber and knocked on the door to report the news to Ji Tianqing. When Ji Tianqing learned that Yun Yao had come to visit, he quickly ended his cultivation and walked out of the secret chamber. After entering the living room, he smiled and cupped his hands to greet Yun Yao. Eldest senior sister, are you looking for me? Yun Yao nodded slightly and asked in a gentle voice, did your trip to the 7 Stars Pagoda go smoothly? Yes, it went quite smoothly. Thank you for your advice, eldest senior sister. Ji Tianqing nodded and thanked her. Then, he took out the token to enter the 7 Stars Pagoda and handed it to Yun Yao. Eldest senior sister, here's the token. It's returned to its rightful owner. Yun Yao did not accept it. She gently shook her head and said, take the token. I may not go to the 7 Stars Pagoda in the future. Ji Tianqing thought for a moment, then nodded and took back the token. Yun Yao said seriously, I came to find you on Master's orders. Master has something important to tell us. Master has orders? What is it? Ji Tianqing asked. Yun Yao walked out of the living room first and said, let's go to the sky-raising palace first. Master is waiting for us. Ji Tianqing quickly followed her footsteps and rushed to Qi Shao Peak together. Half an hour later, the two climbed up Qi Shao Peak together and entered the sky-raising palace. Ji Tianqing saw at a glance that there were only 2 people in the hall. One of them was Chu Tianxing, who was sitting on the sect master's throne, and the other was Yan Er. When Chu Tianxing saw that all 3 disciples had arrived, he said with a solemn expression, all 3 of you are here. Master has something to announce today. In 5 days, it will be the 200th birthday of the Tianjian sect's master. A few days ago, the Tianjian sect sent out invitations to various guests. Master also received an invitation, but Master doesn't plan to go to the Tianjian sect. Chapter 335. Hearing Chu Tianxing's words, Ji Tianqing suddenly understood. He suddenly understood why Qiao Xian said that they would meet again in a few days under the 7 Stars Pagoda. At that time, he didn't understand what was going on, but now he knew that it was the birthday of the Tianjian sect's master. For such a big event, the several sects that had a good relationship with the Tianjian sect must have known about it long ago and would definitely go to the birthday celebration. The Sky-Bearing sect, the Xin Yue sect, and the 6 Unity sect had no friendship with the Tianjian sect and even had some grudges and conflicts. However, for the sake of face, the sects would also send people to the Tianjian sect to congratulate them. Ji Tianqing, Yun Yao, and Yan Er immediately cupped their hands and bowed to show that they had obeyed. Chu Tianxing nodded slightly and said earnestly, recently, the Tianjian sect has been quiet on the surface, but in fact, they have been moving frequently in the dark. Their ambitions have already been revealed. The 3 of you go to the Tianjian sect. You must act according to the circumstances. If you have the opportunity, try your best to find out the details of the Tianjian sect and see what plans and conspiracies they have. Master has already prepared the birthday gift. You should prepare it in the next few days. You will set off in 4 days. After that, he gave a few more words of advice and gave some other instructions. Ji Tianqing, Yun Yao, and Yun Yao bowed together to show that they would not disappoint him, and then they left. After leaving the Sky-Bearing Palace, Ji Tianqing walked side by side with Yan Er and asked him how he was doing. Yan Er didn't hide anything and quickly replied, Senior brother Tianqing, since I returned to the sect, I have been cultivating in seclusion to heal my body. Now that my body has recovered and my strength has also recovered, I will soon be able to break through the realm without the shackles and torments of the wildfire. Moreover, Little White is becoming more and more intelligent. After refining the power of my wildfire, it has changed a lot. Master said that Little White has changed. It is no longer a golden-eyed white tiger, but a wildfire white tiger. As Yan Er spoke, a happy smile appeared on her little face. She was in a very good mood. Ji Tianqing smiled and nodded, that's good. Rest well, we'll meet again in 4 days. After he finished speaking, he and Yan Er waved goodbye and returned to their respective residences. After Ji Tianqing returned to the Tianqing courtyard, He once again entered the secret chamber to cultivate. He knew very well that he had offended Shi Wenyu and the Tianjin sect when he had thrown Shi Wenyu into the Sea of Clouds in the Seven Stars Pagoda. This time, when he went to the Tianjin sect to celebrate the birthday, he would definitely run into Shi Wenyu, Qiao Xian, and the others. He might even be retaliated against. He had already mentally prepared himself. He had to seize the time to cultivate and further increase his strength. Tianjin sect, Xinjian Peak. In the dazzling Divine Sword Palace, there were two experts waiting silently. The sect master of the Tianjin sect was sitting on the sect master's throne. His eyes were fixed on the empty hall, and he was frowning in contemplation. The Taoist Tianji, who was dressed in a white robe and had the demeanor of a transcendent being, stood next to the throne with a horsetail whisk in his hand. He closed his eyes and rested. At this time, a young man in a white robe stepped through the door and entered the hall. This person was Shi Wenyu. Although his robe was brand new and his body was clean and refreshed, his face was still as pale as a sheet of paper. His eyes were filled with tiredness, and his gaze was somewhat dim. Obviously, his injuries had not yet healed, and his body was still very weak. Shi Wenyu walked to the center of the hall, bowed to the Tianjin sect master, and said respectfully, "Disciple greets master." The Tianjin sect master looked at him and saw that his complexion was not good. He could not help but frown, and said in a low voice, "Wenyu, 3 days ago, you came back from the Seven Stars Pagoda with serious injuries. Master asked you to go back and recuperate first. I didn't ask you about the details. Today, Master called you here to listen to your report. What happened to you in the Seven Stars Pagoda? Why didn't you complete the task that Master gave you?" Shi Wenyu's face was full of shame. He quickly cupped his hands and said, "Master, this disciple is incompetent and did not complete the task. Please punish me." That day, disciples from various sects gathered to challenge the Seven Stars Pagoda. The Sky Pillar sect did not send Yun Yao to challenge the pagoda, but sent Ji Tianqing instead. Ji Tianqing, that bastard, not only did he break into the Seven Stars Pagoda, but he also brought a jade coffin up and placed it in the Seven Stars array. This disciple was injured in the process of challenging the pagoda. After ascending to the 7th floor, I wanted to seize the soul crystal in the Seven Stars array, but I was stopped by Ji Tianqing. Damn that Ji Tianqing. He seriously injured me, threw me into the Sea of Clouds, and threw me out of the Seven Stars Pagoda. Speaking of this, the scene at that time appeared in Shi Wenyu's mind again. Monstrous anger and killing intent surged in his heart, and his expression became ferocious. Taoist Tianji, who had been indifferent, could not help but have a slight change in expression after hearing Shi Wenyu's words. A cold killing intent flashed in his eyes. The Tianjin sect master immediately frowned. Doubt and astonishment flashed in his eyes. "What? You've already broken through to the 9th level of the mystic comprehending stage. With your strength, there's almost no one below the origin core stage who is a match for you. How could Ji Tianqing seriously injure you?" Not only did Shi Wenyu have the strength of the 9th level of the mystic comprehending stage, but he was also a martial genius with a mystic rank bloodline. His sword Dao cultivation was extremely high. Unless he encountered an origin core stage powerhouse, there was almost no mystic comprehending stage martial artist who was a match for him. Before challenging the Seven Stars Pagoda, Shi Wenyu had always thought so until he met Ji Tianqing. Shi Wenyu's face was full of anger and unwillingness. He lowered his head and cupped his hands. "Master, that bastard Ji Tianqing's innate talent is extraordinary. He can't be judged by common sense. This disciple believes that his innate talent is not inferior to Yun Yao's at all." The Tianjin sect master's expression became serious. His eyes flashed with a bright light as he muttered in a low voice, "Damn it! The 9 Dragons spiritual pulse has accumulated so much fortune for the Sky Pillar sect. How could it be so powerful? The Sky Pillar sect is extremely lucky to have a genius like Yun Yao. Now, Ji Tianqing has appeared. Damn the Sky Pillar sect. Relying on the accumulation of a 1,000-year-old ancient sect and having 2 genius disciples, they're becoming more and more arrogant and despotic." As he spoke, the Tianjin sect master raised his hand in anger and slapped the armrest of his throne. At this moment, Taoist Tianji said with a solemn expression, "Sect master, the Sky Pillar sect is indulging their disciples to wantonly trample on the rules and humiliate our sect's disciples. They're really arrogant and presumptuous to the extreme. Our plan must be carried out. Our sect must replace the Sky Pillar sect as soon as possible and take control of the Tianqian region. Otherwise, the ancient star realm will be in chaos. Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao are Chu Tiantian's right-hand men. If we can get rid of them, we can cut off Chu Tiantian's wings and cause the Sky Pillar sect to suffer heavy losses. There's a good opportunity right now. The sect master's birthday is in a few days. Chu Tiantian will definitely not come because of his status. He will definitely send his 2 personal disciples. Chapter 336. Upon hearing Taoist Tianji's suggestion, the Tianjin sect master frowned. He shook his head without hesitation and said with a solemn expression, "We can't do that. Over the years, no matter what conflicts there are between the 8 sects, they have to be harmonious on the surface. We can't really have a falling out. If Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao come to our sect to celebrate my birthday and we take the opportunity to kill them, that's not ethical at all. At that time, not only will we have to bear the wrath of the Sky Pillar sect and fight them head-on, but we will also be criticized and besieged by the other sects." At this point, the Tianjin sect master paused and said with a bitter voice, "Most importantly, with our sect's strength and foundation, we can't fight the Sky Pillar sect head-on." Taoist Tianji frowned and sneered in his heart. He thought with disdain, "Lowly humans are hypocrites." The Tianjin sect master dreams of destroying the Sky Pillar sect and replacing it as the #1 sect in the Tianqian region. There's clearly a great opportunity in front of him to destroy the 2 genius disciples of the Sky Pillar sect, but he still has to care about morality. If it were us demons, we would have killed all the disciples and elders of the Sky Pillar sect long ago. However, although he thought this in his heart, he still had to remain calm and indifferent on the surface. He smiled confidently and said to the Tianjin sect master in a low voice, "Sect master, of course I understand your concerns. How can we kill Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao so brazenly? If we provoke the Sky Pillar sect and fight with our sect head-on, it will definitely affect our plan. Killing the 2 of them will only cripple Chu Tianqing's right-hand men. I've already thought of an idea that will smoothly eliminate the 2 of them and won't cause a decisive battle between the 2 sects." Taoist Tianji then used his spiritual sense to transmit his plan to the Tianjin sect master. The Tianjin sect master frowned and listened. His expression gradually eased. After listening to Taoist Tianji's plan, he immediately revealed a satisfied smile and nodded repeatedly, "Good. Very good. Taoist Tianji's plan is indeed ingenious. If that's the case, then let's do it this way." The head of the Tianjin sect repeatedly applauded. He exchanged a glance with the Taoist priest Tianji, and both of them revealed a complacent sneer. For 4 consecutive days, Ji Tianqing cultivated in seclusion in the secret chamber. He consumed more than 20 spirit fruits that he had obtained from the 7 Stars Pagoda and refined all the remaining star force in his body. With the help of the spiritual fruits and the power of the stars, he cultivated hard for 2 days and refined 2 more acupoints. After the refinement of the 8 apertures of the 7th sword vein was completed, he naturally reached LV8 Tongxian stage. Now that 4 days had passed, Ji Tianqing's strength had greatly increased, and his aura had become even more mysterious and powerful. At dawn on the 5th day, he ended his cultivation and walked out of the secret room. Today was the birthday of the Tianjin sect's leader. He was going to rush to the Tianjin sect with Yun Yao and Yen Er. He washed up and changed into a brand new white robe. Then, he rode Qian Yu and left the Tianqing courtyard. Previously, he had made an appointment with Yun Yao and Yen Er to meet at the square at the foot of towering Sky Peak at dawn. When he arrived at the square at the foot of the mountain on Qian Yu, he saw that Yun Yao and Yen Er had already arrived and were waiting for him. Yun Yao stood on the back of the white spirit crane, and Yen Er rode on the wildfire white tiger. Ji Tianqing greeted the 2 of them and rode Qian Yu into the sky. He followed behind Yun Yao's spirit crane and flew toward the Tianjin sect. Unfortunately, Yen Er's wildfire white tiger could not fly. It could only run on the ground. However, the wildfire white tiger was a spirit beast that had condensed a demon core. Its strength was comparable to a 2nd or 3rd level origin core stage powerhouse. Even if it ran wildly on the ground, crossing mountains and crossing rivers, its speed was still extremely fast. It would not fall behind by much. The distance from the Sky Pillar sect to the Tianjin sect was more than 800 miles. Ji Tianqing's group of 3 only used 5 hours to arrive at the foot of the Tianjin sect. It was currently 9 in the morning, and there was still an hour before noon. There would be 2 birthday banquets today. One would be at noon, and the other would be at night. Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao's group of 3 hurried over according to the time. The time they arrived was just right. It was neither too early nor too late. At the foot of the Tianjin sect's mountain gate stood 2 rows of valiant and exuberant white-robed disciples. All of them carried treasured swords on their backs. Their entire bodies emitted a confident and valiant vitality. 2 elders and a few deacons stood at the foot of the mountain gate to welcome guests. They were brimming with enthusiasm as they greeted the guests. Ji Tianqing's group of 3 calmly put away their spirit beasts and strode across the square in front of the mountain gate. They followed the crowd in front of them as they walked towards the mountain gate. Coincidentally, the group of people walking in front of them was from the Thousand Autumns sect. The leader of the group was the Thousand Autumns sect master. Beside him were 2 elders and the head disciple, Qiao Xian. 8 days ago, Qiao Xian had been severely injured by Ji Tianqing at the foot of the 7 Stars Pagoda. After 8 days of recuperation, his injuries had mostly recovered. There was nothing out of the ordinary on the outside. It was just that his strength had not fully recovered. The Thousand Autumns sect master led the 2 elders and Qiao Xian to the foot of the mountain gate. The 2 elders of the Tianjin sect immediately greeted them warmly. After exchanging a few pleasantries, the Thousand Autumns sect master stepped through the mountain gate with a smile on his face. He led Qiao Xian and the 2 elders up the Divine Sword Peak. At this moment, Qiao Xian discovered Ji Tianqing's presence. Qiao Xian's expression immediately changed. His eyes flashed with a sharp light as he glared at Ji Tianqing with resentment. Qiao Xian whispered something into the Thousand Autumns sect master's ear. The Thousand Autumns sect master turned his head to look at Ji Tianqing with an indifferent gaze. However, the Thousand Autumns sect master did not stop. His expression did not change as he led the 2 elders and Qiao Xian up the Divine Sword Peak. Ji Tianqing saw this scene, but he did not take it to heart. He did not need to guess to know that Qiao Xian and the Thousand Autumns sect master were up to no good. At this moment, Yun Yao showed her invitation to the 2 elders at the foot of the mountain gate. Her expression was calm as she said, "The head disciple of the Sky Pillar sect, Yun Yao, has brought 2 sect masters' disciples to represent the Sky Pillar sect in offering birthday congratulations." The smiles on the faces of the 2 Tianjin sect elders immediately disappeared. They frowned as they looked at Yun Yao and asked, "This is an invitation from our sect to your esteemed sect master. Why isn't your esteemed sect master here? Why did he only send the 3 of you?" Yun Yao had already expected that the Tianjin sect elders would have such a reaction. She replied expressionlessly, "Our sect master has important matters to attend to, so he can't come in person. He sent us as his representatives." The 2 elders of the Heavenly Sword sect were displeased and somewhat angry. However, the 2 of them did not show it on their faces. They nodded slightly and said, "If that's the case, please come in and take a seat in the Divine Sword Peak's main hall." Yun Yao cupped her hands and bowed. She led Ji Tianqing and Yen through the mountain gate and walked up the Divine Sword Peak. Immediately after, the true martial sect master led the head disciple to the foot of the mountain gate. The 2 Tianjin sect elders hurriedly greeted them with smiles and exchanged pleasantries with the true martial sect master. The true martial sect master said a few polite words. Then he looked at the backs of Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao and sneered in a playful tone. "Haha, the Sky Pillar sect is getting more and more arrogant. Today is your esteemed sect master's 200th birthday. It's such an important event, but Chu Tianqing refused to come. He simply doesn't put your esteemed sect in his eyes." The 2 Tianjin sect elders' expressions changed slightly. A hint of anger flashed in their eyes. They also thought so in their hearts. However, there were too many people at the foot of the mountain gate. It was inconvenient for them to say anything. They just pretended not to hear anything. The true martial sect master smiled. He led the head disciple through the mountain gate and left with a smile on his face. Chapter 337. After crossing the mountain gate, there was a wide stone road that led to the reception hall at the top of the Divine Sword Peak. The road was decorated with lanterns and colored banners on both sides of the road, revealing a festive atmosphere. Many disciples of the Tianjin sect walked past in a hurry. They were busy with all kinds of trivial matters for the sect leader's birthday. The guests from various sects and places walked in groups of 2s and 3s. They walked leisurely to the top of the mountain. Many people looked at the scenery of the Tianjin sect as they walked. They were talking with smiles on their faces. The sect leaders and disciples of various sects would greet each other after they met. They would stop and chat for a while. Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao were a little lonely. There were no deacons of the Tianjin sect coming to greet them, nor were there people from other sects and forces coming to flatter them. The three of them were not in the mood to appreciate the scenery of the Tianjin sect. They walked through the crowd with indifferent expressions, climbed to the top of the mountain, and entered the reception hall. Two elders of the Tianjin sect stood at the entrance of the hall to greet the guests. One of them was responsible for receiving the gifts, and the other was responsible for recording the list of gifts. Yun Yao took out a few gift boxes from her space ring and handed them to the elders who were responsible for receiving the gifts. Then, she led Ji Tianqing and Yan into the hall. Dozens of guests had already arrived in the hall. They were gathered in groups of 3 or 5. They were either whispering or exchanging greetings with each other. Ji Tianqing glanced at the people in the hall and saw that most of them were not from the 8 sections. They should be the leaders of various small forces and forces in Yanling City. For these people from the second and third-rate forces, the birthday of the Tianjin sect leader was undoubtedly the best opportunity for them to curry favor with the Tianjin sect. Yun Yao and Ji Tianqing sat in a quiet corner. They were not conspicuous or eye-catching. Other than Yan, who occasionally asked some questions out of curiosity, the three of them were silent and silently observed the situation around them. After a while, the people from the Xin US sect arrived. Only 2 people from the Heart Moon sect came. Coincidentally, Ji Tianqing knew both of them. One of them was a graceful, dignified, and elegant beautiful woman. She was the great elder of the Heart Moon sect, Jun Yi. She was also Xian Xian's concubine. Back then, during Ji Tianqing's apprenticeship ceremony, Jun Yi had personally paid him a visit and gave him a gift. The beauty in a white dress following beside Jun Yi was precisely the Heart Moon sect's head disciple, Feng Min. After Jun Yi and Feng Min entered the lobby, their eyes scanned the lobby and landed on Yun Yao and Ji Tianqing. The 2 of them quickly walked over and greeted Ji Tianqing and the other 2. After greeting each other and exchanging a few pleasantries, Jun Yi and Feng Min sat down beside Ji Tianqing. This time, when the Heart Moon sect came to celebrate the birthday, Granny Xueqi did not come personally. Instead, she sent First Elder Jun Yi as a representative. Although Jun Yi had explained that Granny Xueqi was old and it was inconvenient for her to travel long distances. However, Ji Tianqing could guess the real reason. The Heart Moon sect had always been on the same page as the Sky Pillar sect. If Chu Tianqing did not come to celebrate the birthday, as an elder, Granny Xueqi would not come personally. The Sky Sword sect master's 200th birthday was extremely old. It sounded extremely frightening. In fact, a Heaven Prime expert had a lifespan of 400 to 500 years. The 200-year-old Tianjin sect's master was just a young boy in front of Granny Xueqi. After all, Granny Xueqi had lived for nearly 400 years and was a veritable elder. Not long after, the sect master of the Xueqi sect and the head disciple, Wu Yu, also entered the lobby. The sect master of the Xueqi sect was immediately surrounded by the leaders of several second-rate forces. He was flattered by everyone and had no choice but to exchange pleasantries with everyone. When Wu Yu saw Ji Tianqing and the others, his eyes lit up and he quickly walked over. Senior sister Yun Yao, junior brother Ji, how have you been? Wu Yu smiled and cupped his hands in greeting. After greeting the 2, he also greeted Junyi and Feng Min. After everyone exchanged greetings, Wu Yu sat down next to Ji Tianqing. He looked at Ji Tianqing with bright eyes and asked excitedly and expectantly, Junior brother Ji, I heard that after we left that day, you fought with Chao Xian and Wang Tong again? Hearing this question, Feng Min also became interested. Her eyes shone with a strange light and she asked Ji Tianqing with a smile, Junior brother Ji, I heard that you taught Chao Xian a lesson. Is that true? Ji Tianqing could not help but raise his eyebrows and asked in a relaxed tone, How do you know about this? At that time, it was only me and the 3 of them. Oh! Wu Yu smiled meaningfully and said, In that case, junior brother Ji, you admit it. Feng Min's eyes shone with a strange light and she said with a faint smile, Junior brother Ji, what happened that day? Hurry up and tell us. Yan was very interested in this kind of thing, especially news about Ji Tianqing and other sects' geniuses. He looked at Ji Tianqing curiously and urged in a low voice, Senior brother Tianqing, quickly tell us. I want to hear it too. Although Yun Yao did not speak and her face was still as calm as water, her eyes were looking at Ji Tianqing. Obviously, She was also interested in this matter. Even Junyi, who was sitting among the crowd, revealed a look of anticipation as she stared at Ji Tianxing. Junyi was the great elder of the Heart Moon sect and often went in and out of the Sky Pillar sect. She was more familiar with Yun Yao and had a good impression of Ji Tianxing. Ji Tianxing saw that the people around him were not outsiders and nodded slightly. Actually, it's not a big deal. I'll just briefly explain it. That day, I threw Xueqi out of the 7 Stars Pagoda and he ended up in a miserable state. Qiao Xian and the 2 disciples of the True Martial Sect and the Wind Fire Sect wanted to fight for Xueqi, so they threatened him. He lowered his voice and told them what happened that day. When Jun Yi, Feng Min, and Wu Yu heard this, they immediately revealed looks of surprise and looked at him in disbelief. Yan clapped and cheered excitedly. Second senior brother is so amazing. Even Yun Yao's clear eyes flashed with a faint smile as she looked at Ji Tianxing. She knew Ji Tianxing's strength and realm, and she also knew that Ji Tianxing had gained a lot in the 7 Stars Pagoda and his strength had greatly increased. Just as Ji Tianxing, Feng Min, and the others were chatting in low voices and were having a good time. On the other side of the hall, there were a few pairs of cold eyes silently staring at Ji Tianxing and the others. These were 4 young disciples who were sitting together and discussing in low voices. Their faces were a little gloomy. The leader of the 4 was Xueqi, followed by Qiao Xian of the Thousand Autumns sect, Wang Tong of the True Martial sect, and Song Zhong of the Wind Fire sect. Qiao Xian lowered his voice and told Xueqi what happened that day under the 7 Stars Pagoda. When he spoke of his anger, he glanced coldly at Ji Tianxing across the hall, and his hatred was almost uncontrollable. The 3 of us wanted to warn Ji Tianxing not to be too arrogant, but we didn't expect him to seriously injure me. Senior brother Wenyu, that bastard Ji Tianxing is too arrogant. He came to your Tianjin sect and still doesn't know how to restrain himself. He's still proudly showing off to Feng Min and the others. He deserves to die. Wenyu frowned and sneered. Don't worry. Since he dares to come to our Tianjin sect, he won't have an easy time. Chapter 338. Not long after, it was noon, and the birthday banquet began. The Tianjin sect had been preparing for today's birthday banquet since a month ago. The birthday banquet was very sumptuous. All kinds of exotic delicacies were served together with fine wine and rare spirit fruits. This not only showed the generosity of the Tianjin sect, but also showed the foundation and strength of the sect. Many leaders of the second and third-rate forces, as well as people from several sects close to the Tianjin sect, were drinking and talking to each other. Although the weakest martial artists present were at the metaphysical realm, they could already abstain from eating. But when faced with all kinds of spirit fruits and fine wine, they would taste them. Ji Tianxing and Yun Yao casually ate some dishes, drank a few mouthfuls of spirit wine, and then left the banquet. The birthday banquet at noon was a little simpler. The birthday banquet at night was the main event, and the host of the Tianjin sect would come out to make an appearance. After Ji Tianxing and the other 2 left the reception hall, they strolled aimlessly on the peak of the mountain. This time, they came to the Tianjin sect not only to send gifts to the banquet, but also to complete the instructions of sect leader Chu Tianxing. They tried their best to find out the details of the Tianjin sect. After walking down the peak of the mountain, the 3 of them separated. Yun Yao walked to the east alone, and Ji Tianxing and Yan walked to the back of the mountain. On the surface, it seemed that the 3 of them were strolling around and enjoying the scenery of the Divine Sword Peak. But in fact, the 3 of them were observing the surroundings with keen eyes and using their spiritual senses to eavesdrop on some of the disciples' conversations. The terrain of the back of the Divine Sword Peak was very steep and dangerous, and there were even a few rugged cliffs with strange rocks. There were a few small open spaces halfway up the mountain, where several palaces and houses were built. Surprisingly, half of the palaces and houses were in the open space, and the other half were suspended in the air. Upon closer inspection, one would discover that the floating palaces and mansions were supported by huge beams and pillars. Furthermore, there were formations set up around them. In this way, the palaces and houses looked thrilling and strange, and had a special charm. Living in those houses, one could enjoy the surrounding scenery and experience the feeling of living above the cliff. Yan lived in the palace of the fire race when he was young. The culture of the fire race was slightly different from that of the human race. Not long after he entered the sky-bearing sect, he was sent to the boundless cave by Chu Tianxing to sleep. Therefore, Yan was somewhat unfamiliar with many things of the human race. When he saw the mansions and palaces, he couldn't help but become interested. He moved closer to take a few more glances. Ji Tianqing naturally wouldn't stop him, so he accompanied him to watch. However, every palace and courtyard was guarded by guards, and no one was allowed to enter. The two of them could only watch from the outside and could not enter the courtyard or the palace. Yan looked around and observed for a while, and then her interest gradually faded. She pulled Ji Tianqing to go somewhere else. At this time, in a room on the third floor of a suspended palace, a pair of cold eyes were looking at the back of Ji Tianqing and Yan through the window grill. This pair of eyes was slightly bigger than an ordinary person, and there was a faint dark red color in the bottom of the eyes. It was filled with a cold light that was filled with killing intent. Its owner was a tall and graceful woman wearing a black robe, a cloak, and a black veil. She stood in front of the window and stared at Ji Tianqing's back. Her eyes were filled with a cold light, and her body was emitting a dense killing intent. Swish! She suddenly turned and walked to the door as fast as the wind. However, just as she opened the door and was about to rush out of the room, a white-robed figure blocked the door and stopped her. The person who came was an old man with white hair and a white beard. It was Taoist priest Tianji. He looked at the black-robed woman seriously and asked in the language of the demon race, "Princess, what do you want to do?" The black-robed woman was Princess Blood Moon. When she saw Taoist priest Tianji, she temporarily suppressed her killing intent and said in a low voice, "Ji Tianqing actually came to the back mountain. This is a great opportunity. I want to catch him. Princess, don't be rash." Taoist priest Tianji hurriedly closed the door and said in a serious tone, "Now, the 8 sects and experts from all over the world have gathered on the Divine Sword Peak. If you try to catch Ji Tianqing, you will definitely expose your aura and attract the experts from all over the world." Princess Blood Moon also understood this. She couldn't help but frown and shouted in a low voice, "Then what should I do? Do I have to watch him escape again and again?" "High Priest, I have already stayed here for more than a month. I can't even leave this palace. How long do I have to wait?" Taoist priest Tianji hurriedly persuaded her, "Princess, a little impatience will spoil a great plan. For the sake of our revenge, please be patient. Moreover, I have already discussed with the sect leader of the Tianjian sect. We will take action tonight. At that time, we will definitely be able to take Ji Tianqing's life." Hearing this, a bright light flashed in the eyes of the Blood Moon Infanta, and she calmed down. When Taoist priest Tianji saw that she didn't say anything else, he said, "Princess, you can stay here and wait for the news. I still have things to do." After saying this, he took his leave. Princess Blood Moon stood in front of the window. She looked through the window and watched Ji Tianqing's back disappear into the distance. The corners of her mouth curved into a bloodthirsty sneer. Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao strolled around the Tianjian sect for an entire afternoon. The three of them walked past several mountain peaks and observed countless people, houses, and palaces. Apart from being familiar with the structure of the Tianjian sect, they didn't manage to obtain any useful information. After all, the Tianjian sect must have taken precautions and wouldn't allow outsiders to easily get hold of their weakness. During this time, Ji Tianqing also met countless disciples of the Tianjian sect. Most of the disciples had a trace of hostility in their eyes when they saw him wearing the white robe of the Sky Pillar sect. He could see that the Tianjian sect had a deep enmity towards the Sky Pillar sect. This wasn't just the thought of the Tianjian sect master and elders. Even the ordinary disciples had the same thought. He knew that this was a very dangerous signal. The Tianjian sect and the Sky Pillar sect would probably have a war in the near future. Unknowingly, night fell. More guests arrived and entered the guest hall at the peak of the Divine Sword Peak. Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao returned to the reception hall and waited for the banquet to begin. The reception hall was brightly lit and filled with colorful lights. Countless young and beautiful maids entered the reception hall, carrying delicacies and fine wine. On the high platform, there were women dressed in thin sandals. They danced to the music of the string and woodwind instruments, displaying their graceful and moving figures. When the banquet began, the master of the Tianjian sect finally made his appearance. He walked into the reception hall and greeted the guests. Spiritual Master Tianji, Guest Elder Huangfu, Xueqi, and several other elders of the Tianjian sect also entered the reception hall and toasted the guests. The reception hall immediately became lively and clamorous. Cheers and laughter could be heard everywhere. However, Ji Tianqing could feel that the master of the Tianjian sect, Xueqi, and the others had cast several sharp and cold glances at him while he was drinking with his head lowered. Chapter 339. Ji Tianqing, Yun Yao, and Yan sat at the same table. The three of them casually ate some spirit fruits and occasionally drank a few mouthfuls of spirit wine. They whispered a few words from time to time, unlike the guests at other tables who were noisy. They all planned to eat something casually and find a suitable opportunity to leave after the birthday boy, the Tianjin sect master, finished his speech. There was no need to eat this kind of awkward banquet, where everyone had their own thoughts. They would feel awkward if they stayed in the hall for a while. Not long after, the Tianjin sect master walked up to the high platform and clapped his hands to signal the singers and dancers to leave. His face was ruddy, and he spoke in a loud voice. He first modestly said a few words, and then he thanked all the guests. When the Tianjin sect master said, "Everyone, please drink to your heart's content," Ji Tianqing and the others thought his speech was about to end. However, no one expected the Tianjin sect master to continue. "It's rare for everyone to get together. Today, if it weren't for my birthday, you wouldn't have gathered here. We are all martial artists, and we are all outstanding martial artists in the Tianjin region. Naturally, my birthday banquet will not be like the ordinary people's, where there will only be wine, meat, and singing and dancing. There will also be some wonderful performances to liven things up." Hearing this, the dozens of guests in the hall all stopped eating and drinking and turned to look at the Tianjin sect master. Everyone was a little confused. What exactly was the wonderful performance the Tianjin sect master was talking about? Seeing that everyone's attention was attracted, the Tianjin sect master couldn't help but smile and say, "I have a suggestion. Tonight, the chief disciples of the 8 sects will gather together. This is a grand event that only happens once every 3 years. Taking advantage of this grand event, let the elite geniuses of each sect exchange pointers and learn from each other. This will not only enhance the friendship between the sects, but also allow everyone to feast their eyes on it. What do you think?" Upon hearing this, many of the guests from the second and third-rate forces applauded excitedly. There was a huge gap between them and the 8 sections. They could only look up to the majesty and glory of the 8 sections. Of course, they were eager to see the disciples of the 8 sects compete with each other. After all, the chief disciples of the 8 sects were all masters on the star list. They were the most outstanding martial arts geniuses in the Tianjin region. Only in the ranking of stars competition every 3 years would the elite disciples of the various sects compete on the same stage. However, people from second and third-rate forces were simply not qualified to watch the rank of stars competition. That was why they applauded and cheered, trying their best to encourage the disciples of the various sects to spar. As for the sect leaders and chief disciples of the various sects, they remained silent for the time being, silently weighing the pros and cons in their hearts. Everyone knew that next year would be the triennial ranking of stars competition. At that time, the elite disciples of the various sects would compete on the star platform for the ranking of stars. If they could take advantage of this opportunity tonight to let the disciples of the various sects exchange pointers, they would be able to learn more about each other. This was a good thing for the disciples of the various sections. At least they could be prepared in advance. At the thought of this, the leaders and chief disciples of the various sects came up with a plan. The sect leaders of the Thousand Autumns sect, the True Martial sect, and the Windfire sect immediately agreed with the Tianjin sect leader's suggestion. Chao Xian, Wang Tong, and the other 2 disciples also nodded in agreement. They also cast provocative looks at Ji Tianqing and the others. The sect leader of the Pill Tripod sect also nodded in agreement after hesitating for a moment. As a result, only the people of the Sky Pillar sect, the Heart Moon sect, and the 6 Unity sect had yet to express their opinions on this matter. Coincidentally, the people from these 3 sects were seated right next to each other. This time, not only the people of the various sects, but all the guests in the hall all looked at Ji Tianqing and the others in unison. Ji Tianqing immediately frowned and secretly transmitted his voice to Yun Yao. "Eldest senior sister, the Tianjin sect leader shouldn't be doing this on a whim. It's very likely that he's up to something." Yun Yao nodded slightly and replied using a secret method. "Yes, I know. However, the Tianjin sect leader has made this suggestion in front of everyone. I'm afraid that Elder Jun Yi and sect leader Yen won't be able to refuse." Sure enough, after Jun Yi and sect leader Yen discussed it for a while, they both nodded in agreement. Since the 7 sects had all agreed to this matter, Yun Yao naturally couldn't refuse. She didn't speak, so the Tianjin sect leader took it as her tacit agreement. He teased her with a faint smile. Yun Yao, you're already #1 on the star list. You're recognized as the #1 genius in the Tianjin region. You don't have to fight with these junior brothers and sisters, right? The sect leaders of the other sects chuckled and echoed the Tianjin sect leader's words, teasing Yun Yao. Yun Yao, you're already at the origin core stage, far surpassing the disciples of the other sections. If you go on stage, you'll be bullying others. I heard that there's a new genius in your sect who's also the personal disciple of your sect leader. His name seems to be Ji Tianxing? Let Ji Tianxing go on stage. It's a good opportunity for everyone to get to know each other. The people from the Thousand Autumns sect, the True Martial sect, and the Windfire sect all joined in the commotion. Shi Wenyu, Qiao Xian, Wang Tong, and the others also looked at Ji Tianxing with unfriendly expressions, revealing mocking expressions. Seeing this scene, Ji Tianxing naturally understood that the other party was targeting him. Yun Yao secretly asked him, Junior brother Tianxing, what do you think? If you don't want to fight, I'll stop this. Ji Tianxing shook his head, and the corners of his mouth curled into a playful sneer. Eldest senior sister, there's no need. Shi Wenyu, Qiao Xian, and the others who were defeated by me still haven't recovered from their injuries, yet they still dare to provoke me. I'd like to see what they're up to. Yun Yao thought for a moment, then nodded in agreement. She warned him in a serious tone, Junior brother Tianxing, be careful. Yan also looked up at Ji Tianxing and waved his little fist. Senior brother Tianxing, I believe that you can beat them all. Ji Tianxing patted his head and smiled confidently. Of course. Soon, the people from the Tianjin sect cleaned up the high platform and set up a defensive array, turning it into an arena. Shi Wenyu, Qiao Xian, and the others whispered to each other for a while, then came to a tacit agreement. Thus Wang Tong of the True Martial sect was the first to jump onto the high platform. He bowed to the guests in the hall and said loudly, I am Wang Tong, the chief disciple of the True Martial sect. After that, he looked down at Ji Tianxing and said in a cold and meaningful tone, Ji Tianxing, junior brother Ji. I still can't forget what you said to me that day under the 7 Stars Pagoda. Today, in front of all the seniors and fellow Taoists, I'd like to ask junior brother Ji to teach me a thing or two. I'd like to see if junior brother Ji's strength is worthy of your arrogance. When the hundreds of martial artists in the hall heard Wang Tong's words, they suddenly smiled playfully and their hearts were filled with anticipation. Chapter 340. Under everyone's gaze, Ji Tianxing stood up. He looked at Wharton in the ring with an expressionless face and asked with an indifferent tone, Wharton, where did you get the courage to challenge me in front of everyone? Could it be that you've got some divine weapon? Or do you have something else to rely on? His voice wasn't loud, but it clearly spread throughout the entire lobby. All of a sudden, the hundreds of guests in the lobby all looked surprised. No one had thought that Ji Tianxing would be so arrogant to say such words in front of everyone. How much confidence did he need to have? The True Martial sect's sect master's face didn't look good. He looked at Ji Tianxing with a gloomy and cold gaze. In the ring, Wharton, who brought shame upon himself, was also full of shame and indignation. He angrily shouted, Ji Tianxing, you're really as arrogant as always. Ji Tianxing walked toward the ring like the wind and said with an indifferent expression, I'm just stating the facts. How am I arrogant? As his voice faded, he leaped 10 meters away and jumped into the ring. Just as he stood still, Wharton keenly seized the opportunity and shot toward him like an arrow leaving the bow. He punched out 2 dazzling fistlights toward his face and chest. Whoosh! Wharton was well aware of Ji Tianxing's strength, so he used all his strength right from the start. His speed was extremely fast, leaving several afterimages behind him. Cloud Frost Tyrant Fist. Wharton roared angrily. The fistlights that burst out from his fists turned into an ice blue color, releasing a bone-chilling aura that shrouded the ring with a radius of 20 meters. In an instant, the entire ring was covered with a layer of ice blue color, and the temperature dropped to the extreme. The fistlights that were as big as a basin also smashed toward Ji Tianxing, less than half a meter away from him. The hundreds of guests in the hall all held their breaths as they stared intently at the scene. But Ji Tianxing's expression didn't change. He was still calm and composed as if he had expected Wharton to do so. He raised his left hand that was as red as magma. The scarlet true fire in his palm condensed into a giant flaming palm and slammed toward Wharton. Boom! The flaming palms collided with the two frosty fists in an instant, causing a loud, dull sound to ring out. At that moment, a violent and blazing flame burst forth, dispersing the cold air on the arena. The two icy fists were shattered on the spot. They turned into wisps of water vapor and were evaporated by the giant flaming palm. Wang Tong was also hit head-on by the giant flaming palm. He flew back in a sorry state and fell on the stage 10 meters away. By the time he got up, the white robe in front of his chest had already been charred black, leaving behind a huge black palm print. His face became very ugly, and his eyes were filled with shame and anger. The hundreds of guests in the hall suddenly revealed shocked expressions and exclaimed in surprise, "Wow! This Ji Tianqing's strength is actually so strong?" Wang Tong, a LV8 Tongxian stage martial artist, couldn't even withstand a single palm strike from him? Both of them are obviously at Tongxian stage LV8, and Wang Tong made the first move. How did this happen? Looks like Ji Tianqing does have the right to be arrogant. Wang Tong heard the crowd's discussion and became even more furious. He shouted angrily and pounced on Ji Tianqing again. Snowy Frost City. Wang Tong burst forth with all the power he had accumulated in his lifetime, displaying his trump card. His palms emitted an overwhelming white light, releasing a bone-chilling cold current that enveloped the surrounding 20 meters. Instantly, the entire arena was covered with a thick layer of frost, and dense white snowflakes appeared in the air. He waved his palms as fast as lightning, striking out 64 frosty palm shadows that descended from the sky toward Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing's figure was immediately engulfed by the overwhelming cold palm shadows and the fluttering snowflakes. The temperature in the hall seemed to have dropped to the freezing point. Countless people subconsciously shrank their necks. Snow in the hot summer of June? Such a rare sight could only be seen here. Countless guests widened their eyes and stared at the arena, anticipating the result. In the next moment, among the dozens of frosty palm shadows, a huge flaming palm suddenly blasted out. Bang! With a muffled sound, the dozens of frosty palm shadows were shattered into shards of frosty light and scattered in all directions. The flaming palm passed through the frosty light and hit Wang Tong, sending him flying again. With a bang, he crashed into the defensive array. When Wang Tong struggled to get up, blood gushed out of his mouth. He held his charred chest with both hands, and black smoke rose from his body. The same scene played out again, but Ji Tianqing still used the same flaming palm, the same move. Simple, violent, and domineering. He crushed Wang Tong in a violent and invincible manner, severely injuring him with just 2 palms. The hundreds of people in the hall were stunned at the scene. The martial artists from the second and third-rate forces felt that their horizons had been broadened. They were both shocked and excited. The eyes of the sect masters were a little gloomy. Obviously, they had expected that things were not going well. The Sky Pillar sect had a super-talented Yun Yao, which had already multiplied the pressure of the other sects and made them jealous. Now, Ji Tianqing had appeared, who was as monstrous as Yun Yao and could completely crush opponents of the same level. Was there still justice in this? The sect masters were all thinking in their hearts. 10 or 20 years later, when Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao grew up, wouldn't the Sky Pillar sect be invincible? Wang Tong staggered to his feet and glared at Ji Tianqing. He shouted coldly, "Ji Tianqing, you win. I admit defeat." After saying that, he ignored the discussions and chuckles of the people in the hall and quickly walked down the arena, returning to the true martial sect master's side to heal his injuries. Ji Tianqing didn't expect that Wang Tong would be able to endure such great humiliation and admit defeat so straightforwardly. He thought to himself, before Wang Tong went up the arena, he had discussed something with Shi Wenyu, Qiao Xian, and the others. He endured the humiliation and admitted defeat in public. Could it be that there's a conspiracy? At this moment, Shi Wenyu stood up with a swoosh and walked towards the arena. Ji Tianqing. This is the Tianjin sect, and tonight is my master's birthday. How can I allow you to be presumptuous here? Hearing this angry shout, Ji Tianqing raised his head and looked at him. He couldn't help but frown. Shi Wenyu. Haven't I taught you a lesson before? He could see that Shi Wenyu's complexion was not good. It was obvious that his injuries had not recovered, and his strength was a little weak. He couldn't understand. Shi Wenyu had been trampled by him once. Where did he get the courage to challenge him in public? Wasn't Xueqi afraid of being defeated in public and ridiculed by all the guests? Xueqi jumped onto the arena and shouted sternly, "Ji Tianqing, no matter how strong and ruthless you are, I must fight you tonight." Ji Tianqing frowned again. He vaguely felt that Xueqi's words had a deeper meaning. He looked at Xueqi contemptuously and sneered, "You're just a defeated opponent. You haven't even recovered from your injuries. What right do you have to challenge me?" Xueqi was immediately filled with anger. He rushed toward him as fast as the wind, waving his palms to create a sky full of flames. Chapter 341. More than 40 flaming palm shadows densely covered a radius of 10 meters. Ji Tianqing's figure was immediately obscured by the flames that filled the sky. At the critical moment, he waved his palms without changing his expression and struck out more than 30 palm shadows. On the surface, it looked like he was using the same flaming palm technique as Xueqi. But in reality, his skills were much deeper than Xueqi's. His true red flame fire was also more powerful than Xueqi's true essence flames. In a series of muffled sounds, the flaming palm shadows from both sides collided fiercely and exploded at the same time. Ji Tianqing easily resolved Xueqi's attack. After the flames in the sky dissipated, he approached Xueqi and scathed, "Xueqi, whether it was before, now, or in the future, you are no match for me. You will lose without a doubt." He shouted in a cold tone. His figure turned into a golden stream of light and rushed toward Xueqi as fast as lightning. When the hundreds of guests in the hall heard Ji Tianqing's words, their faces were filled with shock. Only then did everyone know that he had already fought with Xueqi and that Xueqi had been injured by him. Understanding this, everyone was shocked and all kinds of thoughts emerged in their minds. It's said that Xueqi is an elite genius second only to Yun Yao. He will definitely take second place on the star list next year. Ji Tianqing has already defeated Xueqi. Doesn't that mean he is second on the star list? This is unbelievable. The first and second geniuses of the Tianquan region are both disciples of the Sky Pillar sect? This is going to be a good show. Xueqi will lose without a doubt. The Tianjian sect is going to be humiliated. The Tianjian sect master proposed to let the disciples of the various sects exchange pointers, but the Tianjian sect was defeated. How will this end later? The hundreds of guests had mixed feelings. They stared at the arena expectantly, waiting for a good show to unfold. Xueqi was filled with grief and indignation. His face was as gloomy as ice, but he clenched his teeth and didn't say a word. He used all of his strength to display his palm technique, releasing the power of his true essence to the limit, and directly clashed with Ji Tianqing. The two of them continuously shot out dozens of flaming palms condensed from true essence. In the blink of an eye, they had collided dozens of times, causing a series of muffled explosions. Bang 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 bang. In that instant, the hundreds of flaming palm shadows collapsed and exploded, turning into flame fragments that blotted out the sky and covered the earth, splashing in all directions. The entire arena had turned into a world of flames, filled with raging flames. Finally, Xueqi's attack was completely defeated. His attack was full of flaws and holes. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Ji Tianqing raised his hand and slapped his chest. Boom! With a muffled sound, Xueqi was sent flying on the spot. He opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood as he was sent flying backwards, crashing heavily into the protective shield of the defensive formation. Then, he fell to the ground and rolled twice before coming to a stop. He lay still on the ground. His eyes were closed tightly while blood still flowed from his mouth and nose. The true essence aura and vitality in his entire body had already weakened rapidly, and he became deathly silent. Seeing this scene, countless guests were stunned. Many people were full of confusion as they stared at Xueqi lying on the ground, not understanding what had happened. A moment later, someone suddenly stood up from his seat and screamed in horror. "Someone's dead! Xueqi's dead!" The person who screamed was Qiao Xian. Wang Tong and Song Zhong beside him came back to their senses and shouted, "Someone's dead! Ji Tianqing killed Xueqi. Ji Tianqing actually committed murder in front of everyone. Catch him!" Suddenly, the entire hall was in an uproar. Hundreds of guests were shocked, their eyes full of horror. Countless people stood up, and their gazes gathered on Xueqi in unison. Ji Tianqing was also stunned. He frowned as he looked at Xueqi lying on the ground. his heart filled with confusion. What's going on? What the hell is Xueqi doing? Pretending to be dead? I clearly only used 70% of my strength. With his strength, he would at most be injured by me. How could he be killed? Thinking of this, he subconsciously walked to Xueqi's side and stretched out 2 fingers to check Xueqi's breath. There was no breath. Ji Tianxing's expression changed, and he checked Xueqi's pulse and heartbeat. The result was still no sound. Xueqi's body had no breath or heartbeat at all. He had become a lifeless corpse. Ji Tianxing was stunned. His eyes became extremely serious, and many thoughts flashed through his mind. He's really dead? He was killed by me so easily? This is impossible. There must be something wrong. Everyone in the hall stood up, and their expressions became grave and solemn. Everyone knew that Ji Tianxing had gotten into big trouble. He had killed the Tianjin sect's favorite disciple, Xueqi, in front of all the guests at the Tianjin sect's birthday banquet. This was absolutely a monstrous disaster, and it was also an extreme provocation and humiliation to the Tianjin sect. The Tianjin sect's sect master, who was sitting in the main seat, had been calmly watching the fight with a wine cup in his hand. Suddenly, such an accident happened, and he was stunned on the spot. The wine cup in his hand fell to the ground and shattered into pieces. In the next moment, the Tianjin sect's sect master came to his senses and stood up with a swish. He stared coldly at Ji Tianxing, his face livid. Without needing him to give the order, Immortal Tianji jumped into the arena. He bent down to check Xueqi's breath, and immediately reported to the Tianjin sect's sect master in a serious tone. Sect master, Xueqi is dead. Immortal Tianji's words were the final conclusion. The hundreds of guests' faces changed dramatically, and they all cried out in alarm. The Tianjin sect's sect master seemed to be unable to bear this blow. His body swayed a few times, and his face was as pale as paper. He took a deep breath, and then shouted angrily, "Guards! Take down that madman Ji Tianxing." Hearing the order, the 4 purple-robed elders of the Sky Sword sect immediately jumped onto the stage at lightning speed and surrounded Ji Tianxing. Ji Tianxing finally realized that there was something wrong with this matter. Seeing the 4 elders approaching with murderous intent, he immediately shouted in a low voice, "Wait a minute. There's something fishy about this matter. There's definitely something wrong. When I fought with Xueqi, it wasn't a fight to the death. I only used 70% of my strength. With Xueqi's strength, there's no way he could have been killed by my palm." Many people understood this point, and they felt that this matter was very strange. However, the Tianjin sect's sect master was as furious as a mad lion. He roared with his beard flying in the air. "Ji Tianxing, the facts are in front of us. Everyone saw you commit murder with their own eyes. Do you still want to deny it? My disciple, Xueqi, has been killed by you. His body is right in front of you. No matter how you try to deny it, you can't confuse right and wrong." Chapter 342. Even though Ji Tianxing realized that Xueqi's death was extremely fishy, but Xueqi's corpse was on the arena, and the hundreds of guests in the hall and members of the various sects had witnessed Xueqi being beaten to death by him with their own eyes. The facts were all present, and Ji Tianxing was unable to defend himself. The 4 Tianjin sect elders were covered in killing intent as they attacked with savage expressions. They condensed enormous palms, sword lights, and fist lights with boundless true essence and blasted down towards Ji Tianxing, wanting to kill or capture him on the spot. The 4 of them were all around the 7th level of the Origin Core stage, and the true essence they emitted was dazzling and resplendent, and its might was incomparably shocking. The arena with a circumference of 20 meters was actually filled with violent and raging force, and it became incomparably chaotic. Ji Tianxing was besieged by the 4 elders, and it was as if he was being minced by a myriad of true essence light blades. He instantly fell into a life-and-death situation and was about to lose his life in an instant. No matter how strong his strength was or how high his natural talent in the martial Tao was, it was all useless at this moment. The strength of the 4 elders far surpassed him by many times, and he utterly had no room to dodge or resist. At the moment of life and death, Ji Tianxing withdrew a silver ball from his spatial ring. This dark silver ball was the treasure Chu Tianxing gave him when he borrowed the jade soul coffin from Chu Tianxing, and it could save his life at a critical moment. Ji Tianxing had never used it in the 7-star pagoda, and it finally came in handy at this moment. He held the silver ball in his right hand and poured his boundless and vast true essence into it. The silver ball instantly lit up with a dazzling and resplendent silver light, and it instantly expanded and transformed into a ball of dark silver light that enveloped his entire body. Whoosh! In only an instant, a set of dark silver armor appeared on Ji Tianqing's body out of thin air. This set of armor was extremely valiant and domineering, and it was suffused with a silver light that was like the radiance of stars and emitted a mysterious and vast aura. The armor covered him from head to toe, and there was a helmet, arm guards, gloves, and a pair of combat boots. Not only was this set of armor able to protect him in all aspects, every part of his body was concealed with weapons. There were 3 sharp blades hidden in the helmet, and there were also sharp knives hidden in the arm guard. There were even spikes at the joints of the gloves. Even the knees of the armor and the soles of the combat boots had several sharp blades hidden in them. All in all, after Ji Tianqing put on the armor, not only was he fully protected, he was also fully armed, with weapons all over his body. In the next instant, the combined attacks of the 4 elders hit Ji Tianqing with a bang bang bang. His body swayed and trembled as silver light flickered all over his body. The arena with a radius of 20 meters was immediately filled with multicolored true essence light, becoming extremely chaotic. Most people were certain that the Tongxian realm Ji Tianqing would not be able to withstand the combined attack of 4 primal core adepts. Even if he was protected by armor and wasn't killed on the spot, he would still be severely injured. However, to everyone's surprise, Ji Tianqing was completely unscathed. He was still standing upright in the ring. The silver armor he was wearing had actually blocked the attacks of the 4 elders. This scene shocked the hundreds of guests. The Tianjin sect leader's expression also changed. Surprise flashed across his eyes as he exclaimed in disbelief. "It's actually the starry armor? That bastard Chu Tianxing actually gave the starry armor to Ji Tianqing? How is this possible?" Others might not recognize the armor, but he had fought with Chu Tianxing several times and naturally recognized the dark silver armor. It was one of the top treasures of the Sky Pillar sect, the starry armor. The starry armor was a heaven origin grade treasure. Only a heaven origin grade adept could refine it and break through it. It was almost impossible for warriors below the heaven origin grade to break through the defense of the starry armor. With the starry armor, Ji Tianqing was in an invincible position. Only a heaven origin grade adept could break through the defense of the starry armor. All along, the starry armor had been an important treasure that Chu Tianxing always carried with him. He would never show it to others easily. The Tianjin sect leader had never imagined that Chu Tianxing would give such a rare treasure like the starry armor to Ji Tianxing. What did this mean? Could it be that in Chu Tianxing's eyes, Ji Tianxing's safety was incomparably important? Was it the same as being the successor of the sect master? At this moment, not only was the Tianjin sect leader shocked, but the 4 elders in the arena were also stunned. The 4 of them stared at the starry armor that Ji Tianxing was wearing. Their faces were filled with anger and killing intent as they shouted angrily. "Little bastard! He actually has a treasure armor protecting him. What kind of armor is this? It can actually withstand the joint attack of the 4 of us? Who cares what kind of armor it is? Quickly take down Ji Tianxing. Kill him. Avenge Wenyu." After saying that, the 4 elders raised their palms and fists, ready to attack Ji Tianxing. At this moment, an angry shout was heard. "The Tianjin sect is so unreasonable. Do you want to start a war with my Sky Pillar sect?" As the cold voice was heard, a white-clothed figure jumped onto the arena and stood in front of Ji Tianxing. This person was precisely Yun Yao, and she held a treasured sword that emitted piercingly cold lights and was like a pool of autumn water. She was dressed in a long white dress and stood with a cold expression on her face as she held the sword. Even though she was facing 4 Tianjin sect elders alone, she didn't shrink back. Her temperament was like a snow lotus at the top of the mountain, holy and arrogant. Countless people in the lobby were impressed by Yun Yao's peerless elegance, and many young men felt a strong admiration for her. Immediately after, another clear angry shout rang out. "You despicable villains want to frame my senior brother Tianxing? You'll have to get through me first." Following the angry roar, a little boy in a white robe with a head full of red hair turned into a fiery shadow and rushed onto the arena. He stood beside Ji Tianxing, full of anger. He held a purple sword that was as tall as him in both hands and glared at the 4 Tianjin sect elders. Suddenly, the atmosphere in the arena became extremely tense, surging with terrifying killing intent. Taking advantage of this opportunity, A deacon of the Tianjin sect hurriedly stepped onto the arena and took Shi Wenyu's body away. Ji Tianqing, Yun Yao, and Yan faced the four elders fearlessly. Their bodies were full of fighting spirit. Seeing this scene, many people from the second and third-rate forces, as well as the sect leaders and disciples of other sects, were secretly impressed. The Sky Pillar sect was indeed the #1 sect in the Tianjin region. Even the 3 disciples in the sect had courage and pride that ordinary people couldn't compare with. Seeing this scene, the Tianjin sect leader sneered proudly. He thought to himself, "Humph, the 3 of you are joining forces to fight back? That's exactly what I want. None of you can leave." He pretended to be sad and angry and shouted, "Ji Tianqing, today you must pay with your blood. Yun Yao, get out of my way. If you insist on resisting, don't blame me for being impolite." Yun Yao and Yan were bound to advance and retreat with Ji Tianqing. How could they leave Ji Tianqing alone? Chapter 343. Yun Yao and Yan didn't even take half a step back. The Tianjin sect master had long expected such a result, and he was happy to see it. His face was full of anger as he said to the guests in a loud voice, "Fellow Taoists, you all saw it. The Sky Pillar sect is so overbearing and unreasonable. Even their disciples are cruel and heartless bastards who willfully slaughter innocent people. Ji Tianqing killed my disciple, Shi Wenyu, in front of everyone. The 3 of them actually resisted to the end and started a massacre at my birthday banquet. My Tianjin sect will never submit to such a cruel and vicious act. Even if I have to break off relations with the Sky Pillar sect, I will seek justice for my dead disciple." The Tianjin sect master's words were sorrowful and impassioned, immediately arousing the passion and resonance of many guests. In particular, the people from the Thousand Autumn sect, the True Martial sect, and the Wind and Fire sect shouted for Ji Tianqing to pay with his life and loudly complained about the Sky Pillar sect's overbearing and evil deeds. Many cultivators were stirred up, and their emotions soared as they supported the Tianjin sect master to seek justice for Shi Wenyu. After all, the Sky Pillar sect had dominated the Tianjin region for thousands of years, and many forces had long been dissatisfied and envious. However, these forces were weak and didn't dare to show their dissatisfaction with the Sky Pillar sect. Now that such a thing had happened, the Tianjin sect master stood up and shouted, and the others naturally responded. The hall suddenly became noisy, bursting with shouts one after another. Among the hundreds of guests, more than half of them supported the Tianjin sect. Although the remaining cultivators didn't open their mouths to agree with the Tianjin sect master's words, they also wouldn't fight for justice for the Sky Pillar sect. These people all maintained a neutral attitude and coldly watched the situation develop. This situation was exactly what the Tianjin sect master had planned. He made a prompt decision and roared, giving the order. "Guards, take down the 3 arrogant disciples of the Sky Pillar sect. If anyone resists, kill them without mercy." As soon as his voice fell, more than 30 black-armored guards immediately appeared outside the hall. The guards all held treasured swords that flickered with cold light as they rushed into the hall with murderous intent and charged towards Ji Tianqing's group of 3 on the stage. These black-armored guards all had strength above the 7th level of the Profound Comprehension stage. Almost half of the people amongst them were Heavenly Sword sect deacons in disguise, and all of them possessed a strength at the 2nd or 3rd level of the Origin Core stage. Seeing this scene, Ji Tianqing's eyes surged with a cold light as he sneered in his heart. In the next moment, the 4 elders waved their hands and sent out palm shadows that filled the sky, attacking without any explanation. "Moonlight essence!" Yun Yao shouted coldly and used all of her strength. She waved her cold moon sword and slashed out a huge crescent-shaped swordlight towards the 4 elders. That crescent-shaped swordlight was over 10 meters long and 2 meters wide, and it emitted a dazzling and resplendent cold light. Instantly, the spacious and empty hall was illuminated to the point it was as bright as snow, revealing every detail. Yen also swung his treasured saber with all his strength, slashing out an enormous violet flame saber light that slashed towards one of the elders. Sky Core Violet Flame Slash. Even though he only had a strength at the 9th level of the Profound Comprehension stage, the ultimate move he executed when he exploded out with his full potential had a might comparable to the attack of a 1st or 2nd level Origin Core stage expert. Ji Tianqing urged the strength of the sword embryo to release an enormous crimson flame sword light that blasted towards the 4 elders. Crimson Dragon Flash. The crimson flames that rose from the 6-meter-long flaming swordlight caused the swordlight to transform into a flaming divine dragon, and its might increased by a few times. The ultimate moves executed by the three of them collided with the attacks of the four elders, instantly exploding out with loud bangs that shook the heavens. The deafening loud bangs reverberated endlessly in the hall, shaking the ground to the point it trembled, and the entire palace started shaking. Numerous saber lights and sword lights collapsed and exploded, bursting out with destructive shock waves that ceaselessly bombarded the defensive formation of the arena. In the blink of an eye, the defensive formation that enveloped the arena was blasted into pieces, and the earthen yellow shield fell apart and transformed into fragments that covered the ground. Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao's group of three actually blocked the joint attack of the four elders, and neither side gained the upper hand. But at this moment, more than 30 black-armored guards arrived. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The numerous guards charged up the arena and swung their swords to attack from all directions, slashing out sword lights that covered the sky and covered the earth, drowning the figures of Ji Tianqing's group of three. At the critical moment, Ji Tianqing had no choice but to brandish his saber and sword to resist. Yun Yao's left index and middle fingers were pressed together, forming a mysterious finger technique, while her right hand held the cold moon sword, spraying out hundreds of cold sword lights. The densely packed huge sword beams were like raging waves that swept towards the surrounding black-armored guards. Yan also brandished the purple flame saber with all her strength, slashing out red sun-purple flame that filled the sky, turning half of the arena into a sea of fire. As for Ji Tianqing, his eyes were surging with murderous intent. He pushed his true essence to the limit, bursting out all his potential. Soaring dragon from the 9th heaven! He shouted in a low voice, suddenly pulling out the black dragon sword and slashing at the several black-armored guards behind him. The moment the black dragon sword was unsheathed, it let out a dragon roar that shook the 9 heavens, and a huge dazzling cold light lit up. Roar! The sword that seemed to split the heaven and earth instantly sent 4 black-armored guards flying, shattering their armors and covering them with blood. At the same time, Ji Tianqing took out a talisman from his interspatial ring. After injecting majestic true essence into it, he threw it to the black-armored guards on his left. Mountain-splitting incantation. Chu Tiansheng had given him 2 talismans, and this mountain-splitting incantation was one of them. After detonating, it could release the power to shatter mountains and rivers. Boom! The mountain-splitting incantation flew to the black-armored guards and was immediately detonated, turning into a huge golden flame. In the loud noise, 5 black-armored guards were hit by the golden flame. They were covered with blood on the spot and flew back in a sorry state. After landing on the ground, they were seriously injured and passed out. The spacious lobby was immediately plunged into chaos and danger. The air was filled with the smell of blood, and the violent and raging shock waves spread out, crushing the tables and chairs in the lobby, making the floor a mess as if it had been hit by a typhoon. Many guests who were closer to the arena were scared and retreated to the corner in panic. In the blink of an eye, Ji Tianqing, Yun Yao, and Yan had injured more than a dozen black-armored guards and killed 4 of them on the spot. A gap was torn in the encirclement of the black-armored guards. Ji Tianqing and the other 2 didn't want to continue fighting. They immediately rushed out of the arena through the gap and fled out of the lobby as fast as lightning. The Tianjin sect master thought that he had arranged 4 elders, more than a dozen deacons, and many guards in advance, so they would definitely be able to kill Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao on the spot. However, he didn't expect that Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao's combat strength would be so powerful. Seeing that the 3 of them were about to escape from the lobby, he suddenly became furious and let out a roar like a wild lion. Thieves from the Sky Pillar sect! You killed my Tianjin sect's people and still want to escape? Give me your life! The Tianjin sect master roared and rushed out in a flash. Chapter 344. In the Tianjin region, warriors at the Heavenly Origin Realm were the strongest. In the entire Tianjin territory, there were only 10 known Heaven Origin stage warriors. Every Heaven Origin stage warrior was a grandmaster who could establish a sect. They could help a sect survive for hundreds of years and occupy a place in the ancient realm of the stars. No one would have thought that the Tianjin sect master, a Heaven Origin stage warrior, would ignore his status and attack the younger generation. He did not care about the dignity and face of a strong warrior. Swoosh! The Tianjin sect master took 6 steps in the blink of an eye, and caught up with Ji Tianqing and the other 2. Go to hell! He roared with murderous intent and reached out to grab Yan and Ji Tianqing. A five-colored brilliance gushed out of his palms. He used the 5 elements genuine vitality to condense 2 giant palms and cover the 2 figures. At the critical moment, Ji Tianqing activated the power of the star armor. Silver starlight burst out from his feet and doubled his speed. Swoosh! He narrowly escaped the capture of the Heavenly Sword Sect Master and brushed past the 5-colored giant palm, dodging a calamity. Yen was at the back and had no time to dodge. Seeing the 5-colored giant palms descending from the sky, he could only desperately wave the purple flame saber and slash out an earth-shattering saber radiance. Bang! The saber radiance hit the 5-colored giant palms and exploded with a dull sound. However, the Tianjin sect master's giant palms did not move at all and were not damaged at all. With a clench of his hand, he caught the purple flaming blade and crushed it into pieces. Before Yen could react, his other hand descended from the sky and slapped Yen to the ground with a bang. The ground paved with stone slabs was immediately smashed into a large crater, and spiderweb-like cracks appeared on it. Yen was lying in the pit covered in dust. Blood was seeping out of several places on his body and his mouth and nose. Obviously, he could not withstand the attack of the Tianjin sect master and was seriously injured on the spot. Little bastard. Let's see where you can run to. The Tianjin sect master grinned hideously. Once again, he stretched out his huge left hand, which was condensed by the light of true essence. He pulled Yen out of the pit and held him tightly in his palm. Yen struggled desperately, but his injuries were too serious. His spirit was weak and weary, and he was about to pass out. When Ji Tianqing saw Yen being captured, his expression changed drastically. His eyes were filled with rage. Let Yen go. Heavenly Sword Sect Master. You damned old bastard. With a furious roar, he turned around and rushed toward the Tianjin sect master with the black dragon sword in his hand, intending to rescue Yen. But just as he turned around, his arm was grabbed by a slender hand. He turned his head and saw Yun Yao looking at him with a solemn expression. She shook her head and said to him through voice transmission, Tianqing, don't be impulsive. Now is not the time to act on impulse. This is the Tianjin sect's conspiracy. The Tianjin sect master wants to kill us. We must leave this place immediately. Otherwise, all 3 of us will die here. The Heavenly Sword sect master meticulously devised this scheme to kill us. Even if master were to avenge us, it would be useless. How could Ji Tianqing not understand this? But when he saw Yen being seriously injured and captured by the Tianjin sect master, how could he leave Yen alone? Senior sister, I understand what you said. But what about Yen We can't leave him behind. Yun Yao pursed her lips and said in a low but firm tone, Tianqing, you have to believe me. We must leave immediately. Yen is the crown prince of the Fire Clan. No matter how arrogant the Tianjin sect master is, he will never dare to kill Yen, unless he wants to be the enemy of the entire Fire Clan. Although the population of the Fire Clan was small, all of them were gifted. There were many masters in the clan. If the Tianjin sect master killed the crown prince of the Fire Clan, it would be a declaration of war against the entire Fire Clan. No matter how powerful the Tianjin sect was, it couldn't bear the revenge and anger of the Fire Clan. It would definitely be destroyed. Ji Tianqing was weighing the pros and cons in his heart. He still didn't want to give up the hope of rescuing Yen. At this time Yen struggled to support his seriously injured body and shouted to him and Yun Yao in a hoarse voice. Senior sister, senior brother Tianqing, run. Don't worry about me. Go and report to master. He seemed to have exhausted all his strength. After shouting these 2 words, he couldn't hold on any longer. He closed his eyes and fainted. The Tianjin sect master threw Yen to an elder and rushed to Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao with a ferocious face. He shouted angrily, bastards, you want to run away in front of me? Wishful thinking. He raised his right palm again, and an overwhelming 5-colored brilliance burst out from his palm and blasted toward Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao. At this critical moment, Ji Tianqing subconsciously raised his left arm and accumulated all his power in his left hand. Suddenly, his entire left arm turned red like magma, and the dark purple true fire of red flame surged in his palm. Burning sky palm. Ji Tianqing gritted his teeth and roared. He unleashed all his potential and used his strongest killing move. Boom! An incomparably huge flaming palm appeared. A monstrous fire gushed out, illuminating the entire hall red. The broken pieces of the tables and chairs scattered on the ground were burned into charcoal. The flaming palm carried a destructive impact and blasted the giant palm of the Tianjin sect master head-on, drowning his figure. A scene that shocked everyone to the point of suffocation appeared. The five-colored brilliance of the Tianjin sect master was smashed into pieces by the flaming palm. Even the Tianjin sect master was hit by the flaming palm and flew backward in a sorry state. Bang! The Tianjin sect master flew backward 100 meters and slammed into the wall of the palace. The flaming palm blasted a hole with a radius of more than 10 meters in the hard wall made of huge stones. Dense cracks appeared on the wall, and then with a series of cracking sounds, the wall completely collapsed. The flaming palm wrapped around the Tianjin sect master and blasted through the wall of the hall. It flew another 100 meters and blasted through a palace before finally dissipating. The palace shook violently for a while and then collapsed with a rumble. It turned into a pile of rubble and buried the Tianjin sect master. Everyone was dumbfounded. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, no one would have believed that Ji Tianqing, who was only at the Tongxian realm, could use such a destructive palm technique. The Tianjin sect master, who was at the Tianyuan realm, was sent flying by a Tongxian realm martial artist. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, no one would have believed it. This was a miracle. No, this was a miracle. An unprecedented miracle. When everyone came to their senses, they immediately burst into deafening screams. At this moment, the entire northern wall of the hall collapsed. The entire hall shook violently and began to collapse. The enormous roof cracked quickly, and large pieces of broken bricks fell down from the roof, landing in the hall along with a series of loud thuds. Many of the guests immediately dispersed in an uproar, scrambling to escape from the hall. Chapter 345. Ji Tianqing had used the burning sky palm for the first time in the world of lava in the hidden fog mountains. He had destroyed a volcano with one blow. The burial of heaven had reminded him that although the burning sky palm had the power to destroy the world, it would also consume his true red flame fire. He could only use the burning sky palm 3 times in a short period of time. His true red flame fire would be exhausted and he would have to cultivate for a long time to recover. It was the second time Ji Tianqing had used the burning sky palm. Although he had created a miracle and sent the Tianjin sect master flying with one blow, he had consumed too much true red flame fire. However, he had consumed too much of his scarlet flame true fire. At most, he could use it one more time before his scarlet flame true fire ran out. However, he did not expect to kill or injure the Tianjin sect master with the burning sky palm. He would be satisfied if he could force him to retreat. Swoosh! Swoosh! Yun Yao pulled him out of the hall and stepped into the dark night. As soon as they escaped from the hall, they saw a large number of experts lying in ambush in the square outside the hall. More than 20 white-robed guards, as well as 5 black-robed deacons, all of them holding shining swords, rushed over with murderous intent. Kill them! The sect master has ordered us not to let them leave alive. Kill them! Hearing the shouts of the guards, Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao both frowned and looked serious. In the hall behind them, several elders, deacons, and black-armored guards were chasing after them with murderous intent. There was an ambush in front of them and pursuers behind them. They were in a dilemma. What was worse was that the Tianjin sect master had climbed out of the ruins of the palace. After all, he was an expert in the sky origin stage. Even if he was careless and was sent flying by Ji Tianqing's burning sky palm, he had no defense. However, he possessed an incomparably valiant defensive technique that neutralized the might of the burning sky palm, so he did not suffer any injuries. Ji Tianqing's attack had provoked his anger and ferocity. He was so ashamed and angry that he almost went berserk. Ji Tianqing, I will skin you alive and pull out your tendons. The Tianjin sect master roared angrily and turned into a ball of dark red fire. He rushed out of the brick ruins, passed through the crumbling lobby, and pounced toward Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao. The situation was extremely critical. If Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao did not think of a way to escape, they would be besieged by many experts and experts. At that time, it would be impossible for him to escape even if he had wings. He would definitely die. At this critical moment, Ji Tianqing immediately took out the second talisman Chu Tianqing had given him from his spatial ring. Boundless true essence gushed out of his palm and poured into the charm as he shouted, "Void escape charm." The talisman instantly burned into black ash and lit up with a dazzling white light, condensing into an oval-shaped light gate. The moment the white light door was formed, Ji Tianxing pulled Yun Yao into the light door. Shwa! With a flash of white light, the two of them disappeared into thin air. The oval-shaped white light door immediately collapsed and dissipated, turning into white light spots that scattered in the night sky. In the next moment, the numerous guards and deacons waved their swords and slashed out sword lights that filled the sky. With a swish 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 sound, a huge deep pit was blasted out on the ground. The loud noise was deafening. Dust flew everywhere, and the entrance of the lobby was in chaos. When the smoke and dust dissipated, the Tianjin sect master and several elders finally arrived at the entrance. Under the eaves of the corridor outside the door, the ground was full of cracks, leaving only a huge deep pit. Ji Tianxing and Yun Yao were nowhere to be seen. Seeing this scene, the Tianjin sect master was so angry that his eyes turned red. He roared furiously, "Chase after them. Even if we have to chase them to the ends of the earth, we must kill them." Everyone felt his monstrous anger and kept quiet out of fear, not daring to be negligent. Several deacons led a large number of black-armored guards and hurried into the dark night sky to chase after Ji Tianxing and Yun Yao. Originally, the Tianjin sect master's plan was perfect, and the process was very smooth. If there were no accidents, he would have killed Ji Tianxing and Yun Yao by now. But he never expected that the final result would be like this. Two of the Tianjin sect's palaces were destroyed, and more than a dozen guards and deacons were killed or injured. However, Ji Tianxing and Yun Yao escaped successfully. How could the Heavenly Sword sect master not be enraged? At the same time, a purple-robed elder beside him secretly transmitted a message to him. "Sect master, things have come to this. Please calm down. The people of the various sects are still here. What do you think we should do?" The Tianjin sect master took several deep breaths before he could barely suppress his anger. He turned his head and looked at the collapsing lobby. He saw hundreds of guests with complicated expressions on their faces. They were still scrambling to get out of the building. His face was cold, and his tone was indifferent as he said, "Fellow Taoists, I am very angry and distressed that such a thing happened at my birthday banquet tonight. I believe that everyone has witnessed the arrogance, despotism, and brutality of the Sky Pillar sect. I still have things to deal with, so I won't entertain you. I hope that everyone will be magnanimous enough to forgive me. Take care." The Tianjin sect master spoke politely, but what he actually meant was that he was going to see the guests out. The guests were very tactful. They quickly left the lobby, casually said goodbye, and went down the mountain under the cover of the night. The Heavenly Sword sect master couldn't be bothered to exchange pleasantries with the various guests. He directly ignored everyone and quickly left with a few elders. After a while, everyone entered the conference hall. An elder in a purple robe carried the unconscious Yen and asked the Tianjin sect master, "Sect master, how should we deal with this kid? Do you want to kill him?" The Tianjin sect master glanced at the elder and shouted in a deep voice, "Lock him up in the secret room and watch over him strictly. Don't let him escape, and don't let him die. This kid is the crown prince of the Fire Clan. If he dies in our Tianjin sect, all of you will be buried with him." The elder immediately nodded to show that he understood. He turned around and left the conference hall with Yen. The Tianjin sect master ordered the other elders, "You all immediately take people and search the surrounding area. You must find Ji Tianxing and Yun Yao. Once you find them, kill them on the spot." The elders immediately cupped their hands and accepted the order. They quickly left the conference hall to carry out the order. After the elders left, the Tianjin sect master hurriedly took Taoist Tianji out of the conference hall and entered a secret room full of spiritual qi. There were two people in the dimly lit secret room. One of them was Xueqi, who was lying on the cold jade ice bed. He was motionless and breathless. The other person was foreign guest Huangfu. After the Tianjin sect master took Taoist Tianji into the secret room, he couldn't wait to order, "Taoist Tianji, quickly use the antidote to wake Wenyu up, so as not to delay his recovery." Taoist Tianji nodded and pretended to perform a secret technique. He used his fingers to hit several acupoints on Wenyu's body. Then, he took out a pill from his interspatial ring and stuffed it into Wenyu's mouth. Everyone waited patiently for a while, but Wenyu still didn't move and didn't respond at all. Seeing this scene, the Tianjin sect master frowned in confusion. He walked to Wenyu's side and reached out to touch Wenyu's forehead. He felt a chill without any warmth. He turned to look at Taoist Tianji and asked in a deep voice, "Taoist Tianji, what's going on?" Why hasn't Wenyu woken up yet? Daoist Tianji hurriedly stepped forward and carefully checked Shi Wenyu's pulse and heartbeat. After a while, he suddenly found the result. His expression changed dramatically and he reported in a heavy tone, "Sect Master Wenyu. He can't be saved." "What? Can't be saved?" Chapter 346. After a long while, the Tianjin sect master came to his senses. He stared at Daoist Tianji with bloodshot eyes and asked anxiously, "Daoist Tianji, what happened? Didn't you say that after Wenyu took the fake death pill, as long as he was rescued in time, he would be able to come back to life? How could he not be saved?" Daoist Tianji showed a compassionate expression, shook his head, and sighed. "Alas, sect master, we have delayed for too long. We have already missed the opportunity to rescue him. Moreover, that brat Ji Tianxing was too heavy-handed. I am powerless to reverse the situation. Sect master, please restrain your grief." The Tianjin sect master's face was ashen, and his eyes were filled with deep sorrow and despair. His body was bent as he walked stiffly to the side of Shi Wenyu's body and sat down weakly. The sect master of the Tianjin sect, a heaven origin stage expert, lowered his head and looked at Shi Wenyu's body. 2 lines of clear tears fell from his eyes. "Wenyu, Master only wanted to use you as bait to set up a scheme. I didn't really want to kill you. Master has let you down." Daoist Tianji and guest elder Huangfu saw the Tianjin sect master's tear-streaked, grief-stricken appearance, and quietly left the secret chamber. Only the Tianjin sect master and Shi Wenyu's body were left in the secret chamber. The Tianjin sect master held Shi Wenyu's hand and sighed. "Wenyu, your father and I were bosom buddies. Back then, he sacrificed his life to save me, and before he died, he entrusted you to me. For the past 15 years, I have felt guilty in my heart, so I treated you like my own son and cultivated you with all my heart. Who would have thought that in the end, you would die tragically under Ji Tianxing's hands? Master has let your father down." The Tianjin sect master raised his sleeve to wipe away his tears. His eyes were filled with monstrous hatred, and his voice was filled with resentment. "Wenyu, don't worry. Master won't let you die in vain. Master will destroy the Sky Pillar sect soon. I will kill Ji Tianxing and Yunyao with my own hands, and use their heads to pay tribute to you. Master will make the Sky Pillar sect pay with their blood, and pay them back tenfold." The Tianjin sect master's body emitted a blazing murderous aura as he spoke, and his eyes were filled with cold light. At the back of the Divine Sword Peak, in a floating palace near a cliff. In the room, Master Tianji, the Taoist Tianji, and Tianji is? At this moment, the door was opened and the white-haired Taoist priest Tianji quickly walked in. Tianji to Tianji. Masters Tianji Tianu, Tianji. To the Blood Moon Infanta raised her eyebrows and asked in confusion, "High Priest, the purity pill you gave Shi Wenyu is clearly a pill that can seal quintessence and reduce his strength. Why did you lie to them and say that it was the death-faking medicine? If I'm not wrong, Shi Wenyu is probably already dead, right?" The High Priest nodded and sneered. "Shi Wenyu is just an insignificant pawn. Only when he dies can his value be reflected." Humph. The human race is so hypocritical and disgusting. It's obvious that the two sects are like fire and water, but the Tianjin sect still cares about morality. Since that's the case, I'll do them a favor and give them a reason to start a war. Only if Shi Wenyu is really dead can we completely enrage the Tianjin sect master and ignite the flames of war between the two sects. The Blood Moon Infanta suddenly understood the High Priest's intention. She couldn't help but nod with a cold smile. The High Priest is indeed a good strategist. Ji Tianxing killed Shi Wenyu in front of everyone at the Tianjin sect master's birthday banquet. Now that things have developed to this point, I don't believe that the Tianjin sect master can still hold back. The High Priest grinned and revealed a mocking sneer. After a moment of silence, his expression became serious again. He said in a solemn tone, "Infanta, please wait patiently. The Tianjin sect and the Sky Pillar sect will soon start a war. When the two sects start a war, it will be the day we rescue the Demon King. The Demon King has been sealed for 1,000 years. After breaking the seal, he will definitely be weak and will need to devour an endless amount of blood to condense the Demon King's true body. Humph. At that time, everyone in the Tianjin sect and the Sky Pillar sect will become sacrifices for the Demon King to condense the Demon King's true body. The Blood Moon Infanta nodded and said expectantly, I really look forward to that day coming soon. It won't be long. The high priest sneered and walked out of the room. 20 miles away from the Tianjin sect, at the foot of a towering mountain. In the gloomy night, a white light suddenly flashed with its swish sound. After the white light dissipated, a young man and a young woman in white robes appeared on the grassland at the foot of the mountain. These two people were Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao. After landing, the two of them turned their heads and looked around, observing the terrain. Yun Yao turned her head and looked behind her. Her sharp eyes saw the Tianjin sect and the brightly lit Divine Sword Peak. Tianqing, this place is too close to the Divine Sword Peak. It's only 20 miles away. The Tianjin sect has sent a large number of experts to hunt us down. We must leave as soon as possible. At the same time, Ji Tianqing also saw the terrain clearly. He nodded with a serious expression and said, Senior sister, there's no time to lose. We must hurry back to the sect and report the news to our master. As he spoke, he took out the 100 treasures brocade pouch and was about to wake Chen Yu up. At this time, Yun Yao took out a jade pendant from her waist and released a huge white spiritual crane. Tianqing, let's go back on the spiritual crane together. It'll be faster. Ji Tianqing also knew that Chen Yu's flying speed was not as fast as the spiritual crane, so he nodded and agreed. Then, the two of them jumped onto the back of the spiritual crane and flew high into the sky. The spiritual crane flew gracefully in the night sky and rushed back to the Sky Pillar sect at lightning speed. Ji Tianqing stood on the back of the spiritual crane and turned back to look at the Tianjin sect. His eyes were fixed on the brightly lit Divine Sword Peak. Nothing must happen to you. We will come to save you soon. He murmured in his heart. 4 hours later, the spiritual crane carried Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao back to the Sky Pillar sect. It was midnight, and the spiritual crane landed directly on the Qishao Peak. After the spiritual crane landed, Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao jumped down and quickly rushed to the sect leader's residence. After the two of them arrived at Chu Tianqing's residence, they reported the situation to the black-robed guard and waited in the study. After a while, the sect leader, Chu Tianqing, hurried to the study. As soon as he entered the study, he asked with a grave expression and a worried tone, Yun Yao, Tianqing, what happened? Why did you rush back in the middle of the night? Yun Yao immediately replied truthfully, reporting to Master, at the birthday banquet of the Tianjin sect leader tonight, the Tianjin sect plotted to frame junior brother Tianqing. They used Shi Wenyu's death as an excuse to kill us. Chapter 347. Upon hearing this news, Chu Tianqing's expression changed dramatically, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. What? The Tianjin sect's master dared to set you up and wanted to kill you all? He even kidnapped Yan. Tianqing, what's going on? You tell master. Ji Tianqing cupped his fists and accepted the order. Then, he briefly explained what had happened. When Chu Tianqing heard the entire story, his face was filled with anger. He slapped the desk and smashed it into pieces. Damned Tianjin sect. Damned Gao Yi. He dared to set up a trap to kill my 3 disciples. Did he eat a bear's heart or a leopard's gall? Chu Tianqing's whole body was filled with killing intent. He said in a low and stern voice, the Tianjin sect used to be secretive about their actions. This time they actually want to go to war. Since they want to fight, I'll meet them. I'll take people to the Tianjin sect immediately. No matter what, I'll rescue Yan. At this time, Yun Yao cupped her hands again and said, Master, I have another thing to report. At tonight's birthday banquet, there was a white-haired old man beside the Tianjin sect's master. I sensed the aura of the demon clan from him. The aura of the demon clan? Chu Tianqing's expression changed dramatically, and his face was filled with disbelief. Gao Yi has the demon clan beside him? Is he colluding with the demon clan? He knew very well that Yun Yao's heavenly spirit sacred body bloodline was very sensitive to the aura of other races. Since Yun Yao was so sure, it couldn't be wrong. Chu Tianqing frowned and thought for a moment, then asked, were the other sect masters present? Did they notice anything unusual? How did they react? Yun Yao shook her head gently. The other sect masters were present, but they didn't notice anything unusual and didn't react. That's why I didn't tell anyone when I detected the aura of the demon clan. I immediately escaped from the Tianjian sect with junior brother Tianxing and came back to report the news to you. Chu Tianxing nodded slightly, his expression solemn as he said, "In that case, Gaoyi may not have colluded with the demon race, but may have been used by them. No matter what, since the Tianjian sect dares to openly attack our sect, I will make them pay the price. Yun Yao, Tianxing, rest here for a while, then follow me to the Tianjian sect." With that, Chu Tianxing ordered the black-robed guard to summon the elders and deacons to the heaven-raising palace. Ji Tianxing and Yun Yao retreated to the side and sat down to rest. After the previous battle, Ji Tianxing's true essence had been severely consumed, so he took out 2 pills and swallowed them, silently restoring his true essence. Although his heavenly origin star armor had a strong defensive effect, it consumed a large amount of true essence. With his current strength, he could only use the star armor for about half an hour every time he used it. Therefore, when he escaped from the Tianjian sect, he put the star armor back into the silver ball and put it in his space ring. The heaven-raising palace was dark and quiet. The 3 of them waited patiently. Although it was late at night, Chu Tianxing's order was quickly passed down. After about half an hour, the elders and deacons arrived at the heaven-raising palace one after another. Everyone was in a hurry, their faces full of anxiety and doubt. They didn't know what had happened. After a quarter of an hour, 5 elders and 9 deacons gathered in the heaven-raising palace. Chu Tianxing's face was solemn, and he told them what had happened in a low voice. The elders and deacons were shocked and angry when they heard what had happened. They cursed the Tianjian sect's leader with righteous indignation and vowed to kill the Tianjian sect and rescue Yan Er. Chu Tianxing didn't waste any time. He immediately led the elders and deacons out of the heaven-raising palace and rode on spirit beasts to the Tianjian sect. Ji Tianxing and Yun Yao also rode on spirit cranes and followed the crowd. More than a dozen powerhouses rode on spirit beasts and flew across the night sky as fast as lightning, rushing toward the Tianjian sect with murderous intent. Chu Tianxing's mount was a 4th-stage spirit beast, Dragon Eagle, whose strength was comparable to a powerhouse in the Origin Core realm. The Dragon Eagle was covered with dark red feathers. It was huge, with a wingspan of 40 meters. Chu Tianxing rode the Dragon Eagle and flew at the front of the team. The Dragon Eagle's body was flickering with dark red flames, illuminating the night sky and emitting a violent and overbearing aura. 4 hours later, the crowd arrived at the gate of the Tianjian sect. It was dawn, and the sky was just turning white. 30 white-robed guards were on duty at the gate of the Tianjian sect. They all looked solemn. Suddenly, more than a dozen powerful auras came from above their heads. The guards subconsciously raised their heads to look at the sky, and saw over a dozen figures that covered the sky descending from the sky. Swish! 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 16 huge birds landed on the square in front of the gate, bringing with them a raging wind. The ground was in a mess because of the wind, and sand and stones were flying everywhere. When the 2 guards recognized the newcomers, their faces changed. They turned around and ran to the top of the mountain to report the news. Just as the 2 of them turned around, 2 gigantic icy blue palms suddenly attacked them. Bang! Bang! The 2 of them were slapped to the ground, causing them to be seriously injured and pass out. The other 20 or so white-robed guards immediately pulled out their swords and stared at the newcomers with vigilant faces. The elders put away their spirit beasts and walked toward the gate of the Tianjian sect under the lead of Chu Tianxing. Chu Tianxing walked at the front, staring coldly ahead. He ignored the white-robed guards and walked directly to the top of the mountain. His face was as cold as ice, and his whole body emitted a terrifying murderous aura. The 20 or so white-robed guards were intimidated by his murderous aura, and none of them dared to stop him. After a while, Chu Tianxing led the crowd to the top of the mountain and stood in the square in front of the reception hall. Everyone looked around with cold eyes, only to see that the entire hall had collapsed and turned into ruins. The square on the top of the mountain was littered with broken bricks and wood shavings, as well as some broken and deformed lanterns. There were several big pits on the ground and numerous cracks. Chu Tianxing and the elders and deacons didn't see the scene at the birthday banquet last night. But the ruins and the mess in front of them were enough to prove how fierce the fighting last night was and how critical the situation was. At this time, several black-robed deacons of the Tianjian sect rushed to the square with a large number of guards and confronted Chu Tianxing and the others. Although there were more than 30 guards and they had the advantage in numbers, they all looked dignified and didn't dare to act rashly. Chu Tianxing ignored the deacons and guards and looked into the depths of the palace. He channeled his energy and let out a deafening roar. Gaoi! Get out here! His roar, which was driven by the power of the Sky Origin stage, immediately covered a radius of dozens of miles and the surrounding mountains. Chapter 348. At dawn, the Heavenly Sword Sect was completely silent. They were still in deep slumber. Chu Tianxing's earth-shaking roar was like a thunderclap on a rainy night, waking everyone up with a start. In an instant, voices of shock, doubt, and anger rang out from the countless palaces and courtyards on the peaks of the Tianjin sect. After a long time, when the roar that reverberated in the sky dissipated, a dozen dazzling lights lit up in the depths of the palaces on the Divine Sword Peak. More than a dozen experts at the Origin Core stage and above rushed to the summit square as fast as lightning. A skinny figure with an aura as sharp as a sword also condensed a pair of wings with green true essence. He flew down from the sky and landed in the square. Whoosh! This figure wasn't very tall, but his aura was overbearing and sharp. It was the Tianjin sect's master, Gao Yi. He landed on the north side of the plaza. Many elders and deacons who had arrived after him immediately surrounded him, crowding him in the crowd. In a short time, 18 experts from the Tianjin sect arrived and confronted Chu Tianxing and the others. The Tianjin sect's master was emitting a murderous aura. His face was as cold as ice, and he was clearly in an extremely irritable mood. Before the Tianjin sect's master could speak, Chu Tianxing angrily glared at him and shouted in a cold voice, Gao Yi, hand over Yan. The Tianjin sect's master looked at him coldly and sneered, Chu Tianxing, your disciple killed my disciple, Shi Wenyu, in front of everyone. I must avenge him. You want me to hand over that little bastard? Dream on. Chu Tianxing furrowed his brows and shouted in a deep voice, Gao Yi, you know very well why your disciple Shi Wenyu died. Everyone in the ancient star realm knows about your wild ambitions. All these years, you've been ambitious and vainly trying to replace my Sky Pillar sect. Who knows how many despicable and filthy things you've done in secret. I really didn't expect that you would frame my disciple just to find an excuse to start a war with my Sky Pillar sect. You're truly sinister and despicable, vicious to the extreme. Hearing these words, the Tianjin sect's master was so angry that he laughed and said with a sinister expression, Haha, Chu Tianxing, you're really twisting the truth and spouting nonsense. Last night at the birthday banquet, your disciple, Ji Tianxing, beat my disciple, Shi Wenyu, to death in front of everyone. Everyone saw it with their own eyes. You actually said that I schemed to frame your disciple? Did you think that I would kill my own disciple in order to frame your disciple? Chu Tianxing, don't tell me that you dare to twist the truth and bully my Sky Sword sect just because you're the #1 sect in the Heavenly Stellar region? After the Tianjin sect's master, two men's sect. The Tianjin sect after last night's incident at the birthday banquet, the people from the other sects had left, but the people from these two sects had stayed behind. The Thousand Autumn sect master looked at Chu Tianxing and said with an indifferent expression, Sect Master Chu, your words are indeed absurd and ridiculous. I was there last night and saw the entire incident with my own eyes. I can confirm that it was Ji Tianxing who killed Shi Wenyu. Moreover, I also saw Shi Wenyu's corpse with my own eyes. He really did die from Ji Tianxing's palm strike. The true martial sect master nodded in agreement and said, I also saw it with my own eyes. I also know that sect master Gao treated Shi Wenyu like his own son and nurtured him with all his heart. If sect master Gao was willing to sacrifice Shi Wenyu's life in order to frame Ji Tianxing, this kind of scheme of exchanging a life for a life is truly unbelievable. It's simply absurd. Chu Tianxing frowned and looked coldly at the Tianjin sect master, the Thousand Autumn sect master, and the true martial sect master, remaining silent for a while. He thought to himself, Tianxing told me that he didn't have any motive to kill Shi Wenyu. He only used 70% of his strength. It's definitely not enough to kill Shi Wenyu. After Shi Wenyu died, the Tianjin sect's elders and black-armored guards immediately rushed into the hall. These people have been lying in ambush outside the hall, so they must have been prepared. Chu Tianxing had analyzed the situation before and concluded that this was a conspiracy of the Tianjin sect. That was why he had rushed to the Tianjin sect that night. He wanted to question the Tianjin sect master and save Yan Er. At this time, the Tianjin sect master saw that he was silent and shouted, Chu Tianxing, the facts are all here. The two sect masters can also testify. You have nothing to say, right? Chu Tianxing raised his head and looked at him with cold eyes. He shouted angrily, Gao Yi. In order to deal with our sect, you've really schemed. You actually dared to ally with the demon race. Even if you hid it well, who did you think you could hide it from? As he shouted, he coldly glanced at the Taoist Tianji beside the Tianjin sect master. The Taoist Tianji's face was expressionless. He held the silver horsetail whisk in his hand and looked like a Taoist master. The Tianjin sect master and several elders and deacons were stunned for a moment. Soon after, they all revealed cold smiles. Chu Tianxing, I think you've lost your mind because of anger. The Tianjin sect master shouted sternly, You're full of sophistry. In order to shirk responsibility and distort the facts, you can even say such nonsense. Our Tianjin sect is an orthodox sect that has been passed down for hundreds of years. We've always hated the cruel and vicious demon race to the bone. How could we ally ourselves with the demon race? Chu Tianxing, I used to respect you as a person of character, but I didn't expect you to be such a despicable and vicious bastard. You dare to wantonly slander our Tianjin sect. I, Gao Yi, swear to the heavens that if my Tianjin sect colludes with the demon race, I, Gao Yi, will be struck by lightning and die without a burial place. My entire Tianjin sect will be annihilated. The Tianjin sect master's voice was as loud as a bell. He angrily swore in front of everyone, arousing the blood of many elders and deacons. Even the dozens of guards were full of indignation. They stared at Chu Tianxing and the others with righteous indignation. The Thousand Autumn sect master and the True Martial sect master sneered again and again. They looked at Chu Tianxing with eyes full of contempt. Sect Master Chu, I really overestimated you. I didn't expect you to be such a despicable person. Sect Master Chu, in order to protect your disciples' crime, you didn't hesitate to fabricate lies and fabricate crimes to frame the Tianjin sect. You're really shameless. The Tianjin sect's elders and deacons also angrily criticized Chu Tianxing, cursing him in their hearts for being despicable and shameless. Chu Tianxing's expression was cold, but he didn't refute them. He looked deeply at the Tianjin sect master, then stared at the Taoist priest Tianji for a moment. He thought to himself, judging from Gao Yi's reaction, it seems he didn't know about this at all. Taoist priest Tianji acted like an enlightened expert. If Yun Yao hadn't determined that he was a demon, even I wouldn't have been able to sense a trace of the demon race's aura. No wonder no one else noticed. You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.